Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third budget work session. The date is Wednesday, March 6th. The time is 6:30. The first agenda item is the pledge to the flag. Please rise and join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a very interesting agenda tonight. Do you want to lead off with anything, Rob? Just sort of explain maybe the changes in the program around.
We actually thought we've got a sort of peculiar scheduling set of circumstances on our side. We thought we'd start off tonight with the police department and EMS, and then go to human services, and come back to the radio and communication systems, if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, from my point of view, if we know all the outside agencies are here, I would let them come first so that we can get them.
Okay, that's fine too. So let me open up a PowerPoint presentation and we'll do a little bit of description. Thank you.
I want to make sure I'm not getting poisoned.
All right. So this is always an interesting, everywhere I've ever been involved in municipal budgets and budget discussions, and for that matter, not just at the local level. The agencies that work outside of government but work closely with government always rightfully garner a lot of attention. When I think of nonprofit organizations, the nonprofit organizations with whom we work here in South Kingstown and other nonprofit organizations that I've been involved in over the years, I think of them as sort of force multipliers. Government can't solve every problem, and we need somebody who is identifying solutions and implementing or trying to innovate and develop new ways of solving problems that just elude government solutions. And that's what the nonprofit sector does. That's what the third sector is really all about. They've got the same sort of motivation, the same desire to achieve the public good as those of us who've chosen to work in government. But they have a sort of agility that is very similar to the agility you see in a private firm. So in some ways, the nonprofit sector is the best of both worlds. It's the right attitude, the right perspective, that community orientation that is important to making things work in society. And they've also got that innovative, let's figure it out as we go approach to things. Those who think about the relationship between the nonprofit sector and government talk about it in these terms. They talk about whether the good that is being considered is a public good or a private good. And they talk about rivalrous and non-rivalrous goods. They talk about whether they're excludable goods, things that you can keep the public from. And then they talk about where the private sector should be involved and where government should be involved, and sort of where the gaps are and where the nonprofit organizations are involved. From my perspective, it's important for us as we go through the exercise of evaluating proposals that have been made to consider whether what we're being asked to do is generally good. It's something that benefits the entire public and the entire community, the whole town. Whether it's something that the private sector already does, or something that the private sector could do, whether it's something that is really exclusively governmental, whether it's something we shouldn't hand off because we have to be accountable, we have to be held to do the work ourselves, otherwise the taxpayers aren't well represented in the process or what have you. This is one of my favorite perspectives on it. Government should buy those things necessary for the public that, because of market conditions, will not be produced if the government does not buy them. Now, this applies to both nonprofit organizations producing things that the government doesn't produce and for-profit organizations. We buy an awful lot. In fact, you guys approve contracts for private sector private firm goods and services almost weekly. We buy an awful lot of things from the private sector because we cannot produce them, and if we don't buy them, they're not going to show up miraculously here in town. Tonight is really all about talking about the things that we don't buy on contract, the services and the goods that we have to rely on somebody else to produce, but even a contract, even the private sector isn't stepping up to make that happen. The challenge is that there's not enough money. There's never enough money for this stuff. So we've got to have some way to select. We've got to have some way to decide whether applications that come to us are, and I'm going to use a contractor Defense Department phrase, whether we get enough bang for the buck, whether what we're buying through the application is going to conform to those notions that this is a general public good, that it's not a benefit that's going to accrue to a small number of people, that it's something that the private sector isn't doing. And on top of all of that, it's going to be something that achieves the outcomes that we need better than somebody else's proposal. And this is the way that I tend to evaluate whether a proposal works well. There's a large preference among grant makers for seed money applications. Sustaining applications or sustaining grants that, excuse me, simply keep the operation going, tend to become stale like government. And that sort of innovation, that spark, that thing that makes the nonprofit sector different than the government sector sort of evaporates over time. If the nonprofit behaves like a bureaucracy, then you don't get the benefits of the innovation, you don't get the benefits of the sort of private sector inclinations that the nonprofit organizations have. So seed money is innovation grants is sort of the buzzword that everyone likes to talk about. They're highly regarded in the public sector and in the nonprofit sector because that's how you get the innovation. What's the good idea? What do you need to get the good idea off the ground? And then how do you build the organization so that you can sustain that good idea over time? We've got a great example here in South Kingstown in the Partnership for Prevention. The Partnership for Prevention is in the process right now of gaining its 501c3 after having status after having been essentially an adjunct to the town government for quite some time now. But they're moving out on their own. And they're going to stand on their own, and they're going to be able to fund their program because they have developed deep roots in the community and because they've shown success in the community. That's the kind of process that you want to see with grant making, public grant making. You want to find the good ideas. You want to support them long enough so that they can grow and find their own roots and find their own foundation. And then you want to let them go off on their own and become successful. So the first question is is this seed money? That throws you right in the right direction. If it's not, if it's sustaining money, is this really something that we have to do because no other method of getting it done is going to work? There are some programs that just don't have a mechanism if government doesn't fund them. And there are some places where we see the nonprofit doing those functions that government abandoned simply because it couldn't find the administrative efficiencies to do it well. We've got a couple of examples of those here in South Kingstown. I would point to the Johnny Cake Center and the Domestic Violence Resource Center as places where traditionally government would provide social services or human services. We just don't have the capacity to do those things in-house, certainly not at the price that we're asked to pay when we're asked to contribute to grants for those types of organizations. So we're looking for, in my view, organizations that have a really clever idea that's going to do something good, that'll be able to move on in the future and keep doing that good without assistance, and or we're looking for organizations that are doing something that we should be doing that we simply can't do for some reason. And that's the orientation with which we've gone through the application process. It's the orientation with which we drafted the proposal or the request for proposals this year. It's the way we've looked at the applications. I'm prepared to make recommendations tonight to the council. The council need not make decisions about any of this. These are policy questions in my view. The council is the ultimate arbiter of what is in the best interest of the community. I do feel that I've got an obligation to let you know what we think the consequences of funding a project might be. But beyond that, these are really just policy questions. And when I say just, they are simply and very importantly policy questions. So I'm prepared to go through the deck and sort of tell you the bottom line from my point of view, what we think the impacts might be. I'd be happy to defer to the applicants. It's the council's meeting. It's your procedure at this point.
I mean, it's every year, typically if the person is here, they come up to the podium. I think I'd like to continue that. I know people took the time to come out here. So.
Absolutely. So I guess my question simply is, do you want me to forewarn them on a recommendation, or do we want to have them speak and recommendations, or do you want recommendations?
I think you should forewarn them so that they could address any of the objections or concerns that you may have.
I think that makes sense. It is certainly uncomfortable, but I'd be happy to do it. All right, our first applicant is the South Kingston Partnership for Prevention. They have requested $5,000 this year. That's $1,000 more than they requested last year. My recommendation is that the council fund this request in its entirety. This is a program that has been very successful, has demonstrated success in the public school system in particular. And again, they're doing what we're asking nonprofits to do. These sorts of programs are not even yet a nonprofit. They're spinning off and standing on their own, going through the effort to get there. This would be either the last or second to last year where we'd see this request, and I think that their success ought to be celebrated, and certainly they need the assistance until they've got their 501c3 up and running. It makes sense to me to continue. The Education Exchange this year has come in with a request for $15,000. My recommendation is that the request be level funded at last year's level of $3,500. The application contains no changes in proposed level of service, no detailed explanation of how the lost federal revenue that they've identified will be addressed, and our additional $11,500 will not fill that hole. So I'm concerned about whether or not we're going to see a degradation in service, even if we contribute substantially more money this year. This is, of course, a very tight fiscal year for us, and we're looking for places to economize or to be very careful, at least, about additional expenditures without a commitment of a higher level of service and without an understanding of how we're going to avoid a degradation of service at the level we have seen in the past. My recommendation to the council would be to level fund. The Wakefield Village Association has come in with a request of $5,000. My recommendation is to fund them at the $5,000 level. This is a hybrid sustaining and innovation grant. This proposal supports 10% of the combined budgets associated with a series of community festivals and events that attract visitors, very successful events. The Oktoberfest is probably the largest event in downtown Wakefield. It clearly generates activity and economic benefit for the Wakefield Village, and you're just not going to get this sort of benefit through any other mechanism. If those festivals and those events were not held, we simply would not see the weekend traffic or the weeknight traffic with regard to the, I get this wrong, all the river fire? River fire. I always want to say firewater or something. River fire event. So I think that this is, if you want to think about bang for the buck, this is one of those places where a small investment generates a whole lot of economic activity. The VFW has requested $5,000 to make repairs to the VFW post across the street. My recommendation is to decline to fund this grant request, largely because of the nature of the request. Applications for the funding of repairs to private property are tough. This is the town taking public money and putting it into private property. There are a whole lot of funding mechanisms available for private property owners to make repairs and to make improvements. Again, I want to make sure everyone understands, none of this is a judgment about, none of these are judgments about the quality or the character of the applicants or the organizations. This has nothing to do with an assessment of whether or not the applicants are worthy and worthwhile organizations. It's really a question of whether or not you want to get into the business of improving private property. If we start down this road, there may be no end to where requests of this sort come from, and it's just, the benefits do not tend to accrue to a large number of people in a community. The benefits tend to accrue to the owners or the immediate membership of an organization that's improving, in this case, a VFW post, a clubhouse, whatever it might be. Again, I think we just fail on the character of the benefit. This is very much a private sector activity, maintenance of private property, and it's very much a small group benefit as opposed to a broad public benefit. The Boys and Girls Club of Newport County has come in with a request for $15,000. My recommendation is that they be funded at $15,000. This is a true innovation grant. They are coming in this year with a proposal, a very extensive proposal actually, to provide services that they piloted last year. The program that they're running and intend to expand if this grant is made available to them takes kids from South Kingstown and provides them the opportunity to go to summer camp in Saunderstown at the Boys and Girls Club summer camp. And it runs a program after school throughout the school year for those kids. They'll be here, they'll explain the success that they have had in the pilot last year. And boy, I'll tell you, the stories we've heard from parents are really quite phenomenal. The one point of hesitation that we've had about this is that we run summer programs for kids here in South Kingstown through the Recreation Department, and it feels duplicative in some ways. The reason that I think that this merits our attention, again, I want to point out that I don't advocate at this point our getting into a sustaining grant with the Boys and Girls Club of Newport for the next 10 years. I'm suggesting that this innovation is worth pursuing because the kids that they've been serving simply have written themselves out of our programs or have felt that they were not as welcome by the other participants in our programs as we try to make them feel. There are socioeconomic and cultural differences that we have not been able to address that the Boys and Girls Club has successfully addressed. And I think we've got the opportunity, one, to provide good service immediately and to learn from the folks doing this program so that we can remedy our programs or address the issues in our programs so that we don't find ourselves with a need to sustain the Boys and Girls Club in this form out in future years. Interesting program, and I think it's going to be one that when we hear about it, folks will recognize as meritorious. The Concrete Couch. This is a nonprofit organization that's done a number of projects in and around, well, certainly in South Kingstown over the last few years. They've done art projects in the park down here. They did a bench, a concrete bench that looks like a W, I guess. I haven't seen it, but I'm told it's very interesting. What they have proposed here is a $9,700 request that would fund the construction of a climbing wall at Curtis Corner Fields. I'm recommending that the council decline to fund this grant request for really three reasons. The first is liability. It's sort of a trifecta of liability concerns from my perspective. The group would design, would build, and then would place on public property this climbing wall. The three things that you get liability from doing are designing something. If you don't design it right, you're sued because it wasn't designed right. Building something, if you don't build it just right and somebody gets hurt, you get sued for building it. And for owning the land on which the thing is placed. So I am concerned about all of those elements of liability with regard to this project. And in fact, I'd go so far as to say, if there were no monetary request associated with this one, I would still have hesitation about allowing the construction of this facility on town property. This is not just about the money, it's about the program itself. I will also point out that the $9,700 could certainly be put to capital projects in our parks that have been on a list for a very long time. I do know that the group has spoken to the Rec Commission, and the Rec Commission entertained this application or some early version of this application and had said that they'd be more than willing to work with Concrete Couch with in-kind services. At the time, I understand there was a $3,000 price tag associated with it, and that had not given the Rec Department or the Rec Commission a whole lot of pause, but they have not had an opportunity to review a $9,700 project. And my suspicion is that if they were told there's $9,700 available for this or some other rec project that's been on the list for a long time, they would likely go to the list. And then finally, I am somewhat concerned that the activity being proposed here, the construction of a climbing wall, does compete with a local business that does just that. So I'm not sure we ought to be subsidizing the creation of a competitor in the marketplace on this. The Narrow River Preservation Association, this is a tough one because I have worked with this group and appreciate deeply the work that they do. This is a $1,950 request, very small request, but again, this is a tight budget. I think we have allocated for the entire fund $112,000, $112 $450 available for allocation among these various programs, it gets tight real quick. What the Narrow River Preservation Association does with the grant that they received last year and would continue to do with the grant if given grant this year is they go out and they sample the water, they take the water over to URI, they pay for the testing of the water, and they determine the quality of the water and record that. So there's a database that environmental scientists can draw on to figure out what the state of the river is, what the status of the river is. It's important work. It's incredible that we have volunteers who are willing to do this work. It's a tight budget, and I think the work is going to get done, to be honest with you. It may be slightly reduced. The database might have a fewer data points, but I don't think that this compromises the program in its entirety. And when we are looking at the sorts of reductions that we're going to have to make in order to accommodate the request or any portion of the request that's been made by the school district, these are nice, but it's a hard one to do. The volunteers, Southern Rhode Island Volunteers application. This is the Meals on Wheels program. This one is a little bit different. The logic that I just articulated would be controlling here in my mind as well if it weren't for the fact that this is a long-going program. It's one of those things that government needs to be doing that it isn't doing. And most importantly in this case, the $2,000 that we use is the stuff that they use to beat money out of everybody else. They tell everybody in the world we have local support from all of the local towns and municipalities, and with that they leverage tens of thousands of dollars in donations, federal grants, and state grants. So there's a leverage, capital leveraging that goes on here that I just think is too much to walk away from. The benefit, obviously, of Meals to Wheels is amazing. The same is actually true for the Washington County Coalition for Children. Their program in total brings in, I want to say, $60-some-odd thousand, and they do it the same way. They go around, they get a little bit of money from each of the municipalities, and then they use that to say, look, we are loved by the municipalities, we have local support. I don't know how much they tell them about the local support. I don't know if they tell them it's only $1,000, but with that information, with the idea that all of the municipalities in the area supports the effort that they're engaged in, they are able to fundraise. And again, if we're going to degrade the capacity of an organization to do that, we're sort of cutting off our nose to spite our face. Welcome House this year has come in with a $20,000 request. That's a 25% increase over last year's request. We're a relatively small part of their overall revenue stream. I don't know that the difference here is going to make the difference. I do note that in their application, the Welcome House has indicated that they recognize they've got to diversify their revenues going forward. And, I first of all applaud them for recognizing that, applaud them for taking steps to address that concern. I am recommending to the Council a 5% increase over last year's. This will sustain the level of service, or I anticipate it would sustain the level of service that we've seen. It will not allow, I am sure, an expansion of services beyond what we've seen in the past fiscal year. The Kane Development Center, the request this year is for $9,000. My recommendation is for $7,500. And I will tell you, this is a tough one, too, because it's an activity that is clearly beneficial to the community. The center serves low-income folks who may not have access to childcare, and nothing is more important than having access to childcare if you're a working mom who is just getting by. This is an extremely important program. My primary concern is that the application does raise concerns about the long-term prospects here. They are looking at substantial capital improvements that need to be made. Just contributing the $9,000 to operating does not look like it's going to get us to where we need to be in the long haul. This is a hard recommendation to make. You have to draw the line somewhere, and I've drawn this one here. I'd be happy to review the application with the council here tonight, or any council member who'd like to know more about it. And there is someone here tonight to sort of explain why I'm wrong. The Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce has come in with a $9,000 request. This is the same request that the council has seen for many years. This request is basically the operating costs that they look for the town to contribute to ensure that the activities that benefit the community continue. I will note there's been some discussion in my talking to folks about the relationship between the contribution that the town makes and the tax bill. Just looking up the property card this afternoon, it looks like the Chamber's tax bill is about $7,400. I don't think that the relationship between the tax bill and the contribution is all that important. I do think that it's the support of the services that keep businesses vibrant and provide the information that businesses need to succeed that we're supporting with this application. They have also come in, the Chamber has, with a request this year for $20,000 to do a signage and branding initiative. This is something that the Chamber has done very successfully in the past. They just did our bag campaign. The British call it the Forever Bag. The bags that you take, instead of taking plastic bags to or taking plastic bags at the grocery store, it's the durable bags that you bring with you. They ran a design contest and chose three designs, and produced very nice bags. This is different. This is signage at the entryways into the town and around the villages. My one hesitation about this, I think that this is an important idea. I've heard, this since I got to South Kingstown a year ago. There's not enough signage. People have told me that they were residents of Southern Rhode Island for years before they realized where Wakefield was, because they were just driving down 138 or up Route 2 and never knew that there was a village called Wakefield nearby. I think that's probably somewhat apocryphal, but I've heard that kind of story quite often. I do think that we have a need to sort of build an esprit de village around certainly our central villages and to the extent that we can, the more remote villages. My one concern is that I don't think that we should be granting money to an outside agency to do things that we do, and we have the capacity to go dig holes, we have the capacity to put in posts, we have the capacity to do some of this work in-house, and I think we should be thinking about design work going to somebody who's good at design and installation work coming to where it belongs, DPS or a DPS contractor. The Johnny Cake Center is requesting $30,000. My recommendation is that the Johnny Center request be granted in full. The center is really an adjunct of the local government in a way that almost no other organization in South Kingstown is. We rely on the Johnny Cake Center to provide all sorts of guidance to us. When the school department runs into a challenge, they call Kate. When we run into a challenge, a social services challenge, we call Kate. We really could never do what the Johnny Cake Center does for $30,000 if we tried to do it in-house, and this is one of those places where a sustaining grant just makes perfectly good sense. I would say the same thing about the domestic violence, and in fact earlier tonight have said the same thing about the Domestic Violence Resource Center. Their request this year is $5,000. It's the same sum that they've been requesting for a number of years. We have a request this year, a second year in a row, from the Neighbors Helping Neighbors. This is an innovation grant that came to us last year and was funded at a $1,000 level last year as an innovation in South Kingstown. The program is really a wonderful program. It has volunteers who go out and help particularly elderly and persons with physical disabilities to maintain their homes. You know, if you can't fix the porch, if you have a repair that needs to be made and you just can't make it yourself, Neighbors Helping Neighbors will send volunteers out and they swing hammers and in so doing make it possible for families to stay in their homes, as I say. I am concerned about sustaining grants. The program is successful. It's continuing to succeed. I think that it merits, a little bit more encouragement, but it also needs to be a program that stands on its own. It's certainly capable of standing on its own, and I would suggest that the funding be reduced to $500 this year. That $500 grant from the town will be matched, I understand, based on the application, so that you'd see a $1,000 benefit this year, even if it's not a $1,000 donation. And that is the group of applicants that we've got.
And then in italics, I see a number of agencies that we've supported in the past. They have not made a request, is that?
So that's correct. The agencies that are in italics that did not make a request because we've changed the criteria for the grant application. Sort of the gateway question that we asked this year was, is your budget bigger than the town's budget? If your budget's bigger than the town's budget, you're probably capable of sustaining yourself without taxpayer contribution. So those agencies that were operating budgets larger than the town's operating budget have not submitted applications.
What are there's the ones that are not italicized? Washington County Regional Planning, that's gone away? I can't remember.
Washington County regional planning is actually a unique case. They did not submit an application this year, and they did not submit an application last year. I think that the changes in the program that have occurred over the last few years have just been such that they're not seeking assistance from the town.
One of the things that I noticed when I looked at everything yesterday was that I think we've made some significant cuts by your gateway question, I guess, in my mind. When I look at what we contributed last year, we're already down 33%. So I think we're saving money in that regard. I think there are some organizations in town that, for instance, like the VFW, in my mind. Granted, that's kind of private, but it's kind of public in a way. I feel strongly that those men and women have served our country. They always have trouble raising funds. Personally, I don't see an issue with granting them money to go towards some improvements in a building that needs quite a bit. And of course, I looked at what they proposed, and they are looking to raise other funds, and this would be a portion of it, but I do understand where we stand in regards to the fact that we're running a really tight budget. I get it. But when I look at these total numbers, I think these total numbers are a small portion of our overall budget, but they can end up doing a lot of greater good than we can, and I definitely appreciate your opinion and your research and researching and going through the applications, and we're definitely going to take your advice into consideration, but I also think that some of these particular organizations do deserve to be able to obtain grants from the town.
So again, I indicated right up front, these are policy questions. This is not, in my view, these are not decisions that the town manager should make in isolation. These are decisions that the town council should make. My only role and responsibility, I think, is to ensure that the council understands that from the administration perspective, it has implications, that every expenditure, every dollar has an implication that it may impact us in some way. Whether it's going to impact the rec department because money is not available for a rec program, or it's a category of expenditures such as investment in private property that is hard to box and constrain. This VFW one is a very sympathetic organization for this type of investment. But we've already noted, we've heard from a daycare center that they also have building needs. I don't know where that ends. I don't know how to box that in, and I don't know how to accrue a benefit broad enough in investments for individual property owners, broad enough to justify the tax expenditure.
Just to follow up on my previous, what about Peacedale neighborhood revitalization or Easter Seal? Well, Easter Seals.
Peacedale, I think, didn't apply this year.
And Easter seals would have been in the larger than our budget category.
Is our adult daycare in the same building as the Kane daycare?
It is.
Next door.
Oh, I'm
Well,
sorry, it's next door. It's a condo
Care of
association, but yeah.
Common,
Parking lot,
okay,
yeah.
okay. And our adult daycare is suffering some
The building.
physical, yes,
That's true.
problems as well in the building itself, right? And we've allocated some funds in the CIP, correct?
That's correct.
Looking forward to restructure the overhang.
The portico, yep.
I
Oh, I have no reason to believe that the concerns about the roof and the concerns that are expressed in the application are not correct. I'm sure they are true.
Right. I spent a great deal of time in the nonprofit world. I feel the pain here, very much so. $5,000 may seem inconsequential to you in someone's budget, but I know for sure it makes a big impact. That $5,000 to the VFW puts the lights on, right?
It also shows that we support the VFW.
It does, and I think a public-private partnership is a good thing. I don't look at grants as just seed money. I think sustaining grants are of value. I think they are important to nonprofit budgets, and I really have a whole different feeling about your presentation coming from that sector. I spent a good deal of time there. I also spent a good deal of time owning a private business and know the public-private partnership is key. And I would be hesitant to fund a nonprofit that was not actively seeking private support as well. I don't think we have that here. I think we have nonprofits that are wholly invested in their mission and looking for funding from private sources as well, and their own fundraising. So I have a whole different feeling about.
And what I would add to that is that we really do appreciate your input, because you're kind of our conscience in a way sometimes. You're the one that's going to do the research and help us understand. But at the same time, I think you brought up a lot of valid points, and a lot of valid points that we should ask the people applying when they come up to speak. And I think at that point, again, we're a council of 5, and it's, a majority vote, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, it does. And at the same time, we do have to be cognitive of our overall budget and how it affects everyone in town.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, we're going to have these discussions as we go through and
Right.
actually set the budget. I think it's a good time to actually start bringing folks up to the podium, so
Joe had something to say, though.
No, I was going to echo a little bit what you folks have already said. The input that you've given us, Rob, is very valuable, and I appreciate it. In a case of a couple of them here, and I'll be glad to talk when they get up. But the VFW, and I'm a budget hawk, right? But the VFW is a veterans organization, and I think that this council has, for instance, changed the property tax exemption to the benefit of the veterans. The Narrow River preservation, they may still do the work if we don't help fund it, but if they don't, I think we have to do it. So, and I think I've heard that from John Schock before, that the work that they do is something that would have to be done if they didn't, and I think it would fall on us. So, again, I appreciate your input, and I'm glad to hear from the people now and make a decision, at our formal meeting on the budget approval.
yes. Always in our budget process, we spend a lot of time going over $70 million worth of spending, then we spend like hours going over these outside agencies for a couple $100,000. So it's interesting just to make that note. But so thank you all for coming tonight. You've heard the town manager's sort of recommendations for us. I don't know if we want to take it in the same order that you went through. I did not.
Might be easier to go on this.
We can just go down this list.
The top ones are automatic.
Yeah, those are. So maybe we'll start with Johnny Cake Center.
Good evening, and thank you so much. My name is Kate Brewster. I'm the executive director. Obviously, I greatly appreciate the recommendation that we be fully funded. I feel a little guilty, actually, knowing what some of my colleagues are facing, but it's really important to us. And I just want to mention that I know Rob said we call Kate when we need something. But Kate obviously has an army of volunteers and staff behind her who I then call for help. So I just wanted to recognize that. I will try to be very brief. The center has grown significantly over the last few years. We are providing a much more holistic approach to the families that we're serving. In South Kingstown and Narragansett, we're doing community health outreach, providing emergency financial assistance, offering health and cooking classes, motivational coaching, and right now, as we speak, we're providing free tax assistance to low-income taxpayers. But food is still our most commonly sought after and costly program that we run. So we're asking specifically for $20,000 for our school vacation meals program, $5,000 to purchase healthy food, and $5,000 to operate those two programs. As you know or may not know, our town does not have a traditional open meal site for when children are out of school. Many of the urban towns and cities have places where kids can go for breakfast and lunch when school is out. We don't have that, so we actually provide 5 days worth of breakfast and lunch items for children every week that they're out of school. And on average, over the last 3 years, we've provided about 20,000 of those meals to local children. So clearly we are filling a void. I just want to mention that the food request is really important. We purchase a tremendous amount of the food that we actually give out. We want to make sure we're giving out healthy food. Last year, we distributed close to 280,000 pounds to the families and seniors who came to us. We served about 680 people every month. So I think it's important to note we're not just providing emergency food, but we've really become a regular source of food for many of the folks who live in our town. So we are very, very grateful for this sustaining recommendation that you gave us. We receive virtually no other government funding, no state funds, and about $2,000 in federal funds. And that's been a big drop-off over the last few years. So this really does help to fill that void. And we're very grateful. So thank you.
Okay, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
How does the food, the summer, is it the summer program and the after breaks during
Yep.
the year? So that 20,000 does help for the entire summer to provide meals?
So the program costs between $25,000 and $30,000. We purchase most of that food. We want it to be healthy. We can't rely on donations for that. So that covers every week in summer, Christmas vacation, and both spring breaks.
So does someone come into the center or do you deliver, or how does it work?
If we have to, we will deliver. Over the summer, we were delivering to maybe 10 or 12 families, but most times people are coming in once a week and getting bags of groceries that they then can take with them and prepare meals. Thanks again.
Next on our list, we have the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm not used to talking on a microphone, and I don't want to blast everyone away. So good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Berman. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce, and I thank you for your time here tonight. In an effort to best use my allotted time, I'm just going to speak about the specific efforts that the Chamber has requested the funding for instead of the overall workings of the Chamber, as you're all very well versed in that. The first request for the $9,000 were for ongoing Chamber projects. It does help to fund our extended summer hours as a direct response to the increased tourist traffic that we do see. From Memorial Day through Labor Day, we do open on Saturdays to direct tourists around town. We see hundreds of tourists throughout the summer and shoulder seasons, so the extra hours do really help. It also does help to fund the reusable bag program that Rob did mention earlier. We did launch this program at the beginning of the year. The launch of the program was a direct result of the plastic bag ban that took place of January of 2019. The Chamber sells the bags at cost to retailers to ensure we could keep the cost as low as possible to the residents that will be buying these reusable bags. So the additional funding does help. We did spend a lot of time to create and to produce a bag that is worthy of the wonderful town of South Kingstown. It is a all-natural 15-ounce cotton bag made here in America. So we looked at hundreds of bags to try and find one that really would go well. And as Rob said, we will be launching new designs soon. The $9,000 sustaining funding also contributes to the holiday decorations that we do over the Christmas season. You would have noticed the holiday lights, the Christmas lights up and down Old Tower Hill Road. We did start at the Chamber property and go up to Route 1, and we are looking to extend that down Old Tower Hill Road with the help of some of the property owners there. We wanted to make sure that the company we're using first was reliable and trustworthy before we put it out to the other property owners as well. So we will be increasing that this year. It does also help with our gift certificate program, which does keep money here in our community. We sell thousands of dollars worth of Chamber gift certificates every year. 65% of the member businesses that participate in the program are right here in South Kingstown. So that is a way that we're able to keep money right here in our community. And that's really the initial $9,000 funding that we did request. And I do thank the town for the continued support of those programs. Now on to the new funding request. So we did put in a request for $20,000 for village and directional signage. I think South Kingstown has a branding problem. Most of us identify from our village as opposed to our town. I'm from Snug Harbor. I'm from Matunic. Like, really, that's kind of the same thing. But okay, we will work that all out. There's nothing really in any of our villages that let you know that you're actually in the town of South Kingstown. So this initial funding was really a way for us to bring the town together and just start a branding effort for South Kingstown. So on top of the village signs, we were also looking for some directional signage as well, mainly at Dale Carlia Corner. I was a college student for 4 years and had no idea that Main Street existed. Not whatsoever. Not until I turned 21 and someone said, you have to go to the Muse. Then all of a sudden, there's Main Street. So, I think very easily and relatively inexpensively, we can put up some directional signage to help get people around. I have heard people say, everyone just looks on their phone. It doesn't matter if we have signs. People don't need maps. That is not the case. We have people coming in for maps and coming in to find things to do all day, every day, throughout the entire year. So I think some directional signage will really, really help. Historically, the town of South Kingstown has spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on open space, millions over the years. Open space is phenomenal for South Kingstown. It really is. But we also need to invest in our villages. And I think this is the step to start investing within our villages. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I noticed, I think in your request, there was wooden carved signs.
Yes.
Would the chamber be okay working with the town in terms of Department of Public Works, maybe not coming up with such a fancy sign, but making sure that we have sufficient signs everywhere?
Well, we did want to make sure that this didn't turn into a Route 2 Warwick picture. We want to keep South Kingstown quaint, looking nice. I think to do that, you need nice signs. But this is 100% a collaboration between the chamber and the town. It's not going to be just us coming up with designs and then calling you to put them in. That's not how I see this going. I really do plan, or I would like to work with whatever committee, council it makes sense for us to work with on that, to come up with something that is good for the entire community. I also did put in the request that 100% of the funds that we do receive for this will go towards the production and installation of the signs. All chamber staff time will be donated as our contribution to get this project going. So 100% of the funds would be for the actual signs.
Elizabeth, is there an actual plan? Do you have a plan for where your wayfinding signs are going, or where?
We have
Is it on public land we're trying
some
to?
ideas. That's part of working together with the town to figure out where these things will go. But the initial villages that we thought of were Wakefield, Peacedale, and Kingston.
Rob, would we have any problems putting signs on state roads?
We'd have to coordinate with the state, but the state will permit signage. We just have to work with them to make it happen. They have their own requirements, setbacks, and construction and all of that. We'd have to make sure that we complied with any regulations that the state requires us to comply with. So, Main Street, Kingston Road, we're working with the state, absolutely.
The success of any town really relies on key factors like the success of small businesses. I really believe the Chamber does a great job in maximizing the exposure of local business to potential clients, customers, and consumers. As us, the Council, look toward more ways to add commercial zoning or new business or new business expansion, I believe the Chamber is going to play an integral part in that. So I just want to commend you for the work that you do, and I look forward to the Chamber allowing for further success in business in SK. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Next, we have the Welcome House.
Good evening, everybody. And on behalf of the Welcome House, thank you for your support and continued support of our efforts and our mission to end homelessness in South County. This past year, fiscal year, Welcome House has served over 18,000 meals to our guests and community members through our daily soup kitchen that we have 5 days a week. This included providing those meals to 159 of our own SK residents. We also provide emergency shelter to 148 different individuals and affordable housing opportunities to 76 unique individuals, which included 19 of our own school-aged children that go to our SK schools. Of a total of 383 total people that we served this year, 51% of them identified themselves as being from South Kingstown. The reason why I keep reiterating how important it is that these stats come to surface about how many people in South Kingstown need our services is because homelessness is prevalent in South County. We're concerned that meeting the needs of our struggling neighbors going forward is only going to get heavier on our shoulders. Beginning this past December, access to homeless services in Rhode Island has changed significantly. A lot of people don't know that in compliance with HUD mandates, the state implemented a new coordinated entry system for individuals and families seeking government-funded homeless services. This has changed Welcome House's intake procedures, our ability to accommodate local referrals for emergency shelter. What this means for our community is that we're no longer able to prioritize shelter services for people of Washington County, forcing those with roots here to find housing elsewhere. This is a huge issue. You can speak to the schools and other social service agencies in the area. We are losing people in South County, true South County residents, because we aren't able to accommodate them with housing and resources. The state's housing fund prioritizes housing first, which is also a challenge, as there is limited affordable housing opportunities in our area, which we all are aware of. We are increasingly hard-pressed to continue to meet our mission to serve the people of South County. That's always been our mission. We stand by it. We will continue to stand by that. With funding from the Rhode Island Foundation, we've recently began strategic planning, and we're looking to adopt a 3-year plan to coincide with our new fiscal year beginning in July. During this process, we're going to be assessing our stakeholders and community members, reviewing, updating our mission, creating a future vision, and determining strategic priorities for both program and funding. One of our considerations going forward will be moving away from state assistance that limits our work to end homelessness in Washington County. That is one of the main reasons that we asked for an increase in our funding this year, because as the town manager had mentioned, we are diversifying our funding because we're trying to pull back from the state and the federal funds so that we aren't restricted to who we can serve and that we can start serving, our South County residents better. At this time, we're asking the town council to consider our request for $20,000, and that's just to continue to support our operating expenses for running all of our programs. That includes our shelters. We have 2 shelters, and also our housing programs, our temporary and permanent supportive housing. Among these expenses that continue to increase are our utility costs. We pay all the utilities for all our affordable housing units, as well as routine maintenance to keep our facilities clean and safe for our families, and our pilot fees that continue to increase annually, and our program staff support and insurance expenses. So it's overall to help all of our programs that we have. So does anybody have any questions?
It's not really a question. It's more of, I think a lot of people don't realize that there is truly a problem in our town, but at the same time, I don't think they realize how much you guys do in terms of units. So can you just tell people how many actual units you have in town, other than the actual shelter?
Yep. So Welcome House, we own 5 properties for affordable housing. Within that, we house 7 families and about 15 individuals. We also lease 2 other additional properties that we sublease out to tenants. So we constantly strive to create more affordable housing opportunities, whether it's through our ownership or leasing with local landlords. So we do have a lot of units.
And the goal is to help people transition from Welcome House housing to permanent housing, right?
Correct. So we start everybody off, obviously, in the emergency shelter, and then we kind of graduate them through the program, through our temporary housing program, which is up to 12 months, and then later on to our permanent supportive housing. Right now, we don't have a capacity to provide emergency shelter to our families, so typically our families that get referred from neighboring agencies, such as Johnny Cake Center, we will try to put right into our permanent supportive housing program.
No, the only thing I want to add is there's also an overflow problem, which I believe Peacedale Congregational Church helps with, folks being able to go in at 7 o'clock at night, especially during the wintertime.
Yes, so that program operates 5 months from November through March. It gives us an additional 12 emergency shelter beds, and it's a night-to-night shelter, so they have to leave during the day, but they're able to come in at 7 o'clock at night, and they have to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we staff that 5 months out of the year. And that's at full capacity as well as our main shelter.
Did the Welcome House experience an uptick in activity as it related to the federal government shutdown? And if so, can you just speak a little bit on that and how you guys dealt with that and how you intend to deal with that going forward if issues like that arise?
So because our we have such a set capacity, I mean, we don't, since we're not receiving the direct requests and referrals anymore, like we had in the past, we didn't see that impact as much. In years prior, before they did the coordinate entry system, we used to get those calls and we used to be able to track, the demand a lot more aggressively. Now that our hands are kind of tied and we're not getting that data, we weren't able to see any correlation and how that affected it. The only thing we did see is people's benefits shorting out and people needing to get their benefits quicker for the people that are in our programs.
Thank you.
So with one last question, with 51% of the population of Welcome House being from South Kingstown, do you get help from any other cities and towns?
We do. We get assistance from Narragansett. That's the only other town that assists us at this point in time. But we also seek funding through the CDBG application process, and we're also going after some private funding with new private funders.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The Education Exchange. Pam.
Good evening, distinguished members of the Town Council. Great to see you again as always. Welcome, Town Manager Zarnatsky. We have another pleasure, but my name is Cameron Ennis. I'm from the Education Exchange. We've been serving South Kingstown residents since 1979 through adult education and job training. We have our GED program, citizenship classes, teacher assistant training, and in 2015 we partnered with the town for an innovative grant to provide oyster farming training. We leveraged the town's name in that grant, and collectively I just signed a new contract, and we've brought in over $1 million for this training programs, which also include hospitality training for culinary and back of the house. So I'd like to alleviate your concerns and say that we've filled in some of the gap that we need through this contract, which was signed yesterday. In terms of SK residents, we have the only Pearson Testing Center in Washington County. And not only can you take the GED test in the Pearson Testing Center, but the business community and the residents also use it. 59 last year. They acquire citizenships needed for their industries and their jobs wherever they go. We have the teacher assistants, 6 South Kingstown residents, and 46 South Kingstown residents participated in our adult education and training programs. This year, through RIDE, we received our RFP, which was a significant loss to us. We lost $80,000 this current fiscal year, and we're projected to lose an additional $80,000 next fiscal year. So what that meant for us is we had to cut satellite services immediately this fiscal year to fill that hole, and I leveraged our grants to try to fill the void for next fiscal year so we don't have to cut services locally. One of the services we do provide that you don't hear about is the Alternative Learning Plan. Now that's for high school students who have no other available option to them for them to succeed, and they go through our GED program. Last year we had 3 ALP students, and one of those was a young lady who was bullied in high school from a diverse background, and she succeeded in our ALP program, scored high enough on the GED to obtain college credit at CCRI, was enrolled in our culinary program, and was able to find employment, and she just completed her first full-time semester at CCRI with a 4.0 with employment and college credit that she received at our institution. That being said, that's a success story, and under the recent decision of the commissioner in Newport versus Tiverton and Middletown School Committee, the commissioner of RIDE, Rhode Island Department of Education K-12, said that the funding should follow the student for these ALP students. And there's a formula that works, taking the per pupil expenditure and divided by 180 days for a per diem rate. So for instance, for last year we had 4 ALP students times 188 days times $111 a day. It works out for South Kingstown. would be $21,000. And for this year, similarly, it would be $8,500 and counting. Now, I've never invoiced the town, and I don't have any intention to do so, because I think by doing that, it would close the door on ALP students, because the superintendent, I need her signature in order to receive an ALP student, and in all, intents and purposes, she wouldn't be doing her job if she didn't, protect her budget and her students by finding some available alternative within the school district. So, that being said, I have no intention of invoicing the town, even though the legal precedent has been set. I would like to preserve this pathway, and the additional funds would be used to provide such services. Lastly, our landlord, we're in the Lily Pad professional complex. He's recently put our building up for sale. He graduated from South Kingstown High School in 1944, and he goes to work every day. I think he's earned his retirement. And I know this because my grandmother graduated in 46. I saw Mr. Sweet over there. He can attest. His dad throws the 1946 class reunion party every year. That being said, our rent was raised significantly, and we're exploring other locations and additional funds to maintain our residents. We don't want to leave Peacedale. This is our home. This is who we've been serving since 1979. But if there were other available buildings or locations, we're looking for 2,000 square feet. And I've certainly looked at property in Charlestown, but I don't want to go there. In conclusion, I'm steadfast in my commitment to serving the town and the population that we serve. We're the last step towards economic sustainability and a long line of great services provided by everyone here tonight. We put 80 people in work-based learning, of which 60 are still employed last year, awarded 27 GEDs, of which 8 went on to community college. So I'm very proud of the work we're doing, and I thank you for your continued support.
Why did you lose what was the reasoning for losing the 80,000?
Right. So we met all of our outcomes mandated by the state. They said it was based on our application. At the end of the day, I'm of the opinion that the undereducated residents of Providence are worth more than the undereducated residents of South County.
The other thing I just wanted to mention is I have seen your oyster production or instruction in action and sampled some of the oysters, which they were great. But I was amazed because I didn't know that it existed until I visited that day. And that's a very big part of where we're going with aquaculture. And you're supporting a lot of the local businesses also by training and putting people that normally might have trouble finding a job with skills so that they can be employed locally. And even with your culinary program, and there's so many different things that you guys do that I think are beneficial to a segment of the population that is underserved.
And I'll certainly extend that invitation to all of the town council and the town manager this year to come take part in our program and sample some of the local delicacies we have here in Rhode Island. Thank you.
The Kane Childhood Development Center.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have too many notes, but my name is Lisa DiCarlo. I'm the Executive Director of Kane Child Development Center. We are a nonprofit organization. We service children from 6 weeks to 5-year-olds. Most of our residents are from South Kingstown. We had requested $9,000. That is what we've had in the past and prior to me. And I agree with, even though it might not put on a roof or a furnace or an air conditioned unit, it will go a long way. We always have a lot of rules and regulations that we need to follow, keeping quality improvement, making a safe and healthy and learning environment. So toys constantly need to change. We are open 51 weeks out of the year, so we are constant wear and tear. So, it could be just an easy putting a new carpet in a classroom, tile. Kane has been around since 1962. It was actually in the building where the adult senior center is, and then they built the new building in 91. So there's been a lot of families that have gone in and out of that centers, both centers. And we are very well known. We are more of a little more homey and intimate. Bryant had experience with us in the facility. But, we serve a good purpose, and a lot of people come from us from word of mouth or, grandma so-and-so or auntie so-and-so. So we need to keep providing the services for them because there isn't a lot of funding out there either. And a lot of parents, do depend on us. We see their children sometimes more than they do. So that's really all I have to say.
I think the manager mentioned 16 students from South Kingstown. Is that correct? Or is it, where is that number coming from?
Maybe we have had a little bit of low enrollment. We are licensed for 46 children now that DCYF has lowered it due to square footage.
Okay.
They've come in, and what they do is they take the square footage of each room, and they have this formula, and we used to be able to have, I believe, like 48 to 50 children, and they lowered it, and a lot of centers are going through that, which obviously hurts business. But due to the fact that I've run into a lot of families that have been telling me they just can't afford to live down here. I've had parents move to Texas, South Carolina, and the problem is the families that are getting DHS through the state and their child care paid for, if they're not continuing and keeping up their job, they lose it. And DHS is no longer, back when I first started in this profession, they used to pay for child care if the parents were going to school or were going through job training. They don't do that anymore. You need to be working at least 20 hours per week. So enrollment has definitely decreased. So there's 16, I think 16 to 20 South Kingstown, depending, because, some enrollment goes up and down. We do service some children that are from Narragansett, maybe one or two from Charlestown, but enrollment is low. So we are being affected.
You guys have been around for like 50, is it 50 years now? Over 50?
Well, it started in 62.
It's a nonprofit daycare, right?
Nonprofit. Yep.
Any other questions?
Good.
Thank you. That brings us to the Domestic Violence Resource Center.
Oh, I can't see with my glasses on. Hello, my name is Mary Rhoda, and I have been working at the Domestic Violence Resource Center longer than any one of you, with the exception of Dale, has been sitting at the desk. So it's a pleasure to continue to be here. Thank you for thanks for seeing us tonight, and thank you for your commitment. I really wanted to start by thanking everybody that's here, because the nonprofit community in our community is so vital, and the services we all offer are so incredibly important to our sense of community. And I do appreciate your support of our $5,000, and I do feel pain from my fellow members that weren't fully funded. We just, at the Domestic Violence Resource Center, commemorated our 40th year of service. We're the only organization in Washington County with a mission committed to serving victims and families of domestic violence. I have a couple of notes. Last year, we served over 7,000 services to 1,100 people. 157 of those people are from South Kingstown. Most people know of us and think of us as our safe home, but we have programs in the court. We do support groups. We offer anything that we can that prevents people from that assists people in leaving a relationship or in continuing their independence and a future free from violence. Now I have to put my glasses back on so I can read my notes. I do want to say that we work very, very closely, in particular with Johnny Cake Center, with the Welcome House, with Thunder Mist, with Education Exchange. They're all part of our program when someone comes to stay with us, and we work to help them live independently. I would like to point out that I really think as town council members, you really need to heed what was commented on by the Welcome House, the new Rhode Island housing. I won't be popular at the state level for this, but the new Rhode Island housing rules incorporating coordinated entry really has impacted their ability to house people specifically from South Kingstown. Because we don't receive the same funding, that has not impacted us. But if we were to receive Consolidated Homeless Fund funding, that would change things for us. And our priority and our mission is to serve people who are homeless due to domestic violence. We work on a zero-based budget. And I'm sorry, I never introduced myself and I haven't met you yet, so it's very nice to meet you. But working, as I'm sure all my peers do, on a zero-based budget, to know that a blown boiler, right now we have a driveway that's got a sinkhole in it, all these unexpected capital expenses really do impact our need to ask for money from and support from our local community. Our money that we are asking for is to help with our helpline program. Our helpline is most often the first contact we have with any victim and or their family or friends. We do not charge for any of our services. Nobody pays a membership to be a victim of domestic violence, and we do not get any third-party reimbursement. So fundraising is crucial to us. We have approximately $1 million budget, and I'm proud to tell you that we raise over a third of that budget privately. The rest is through state, federal, and municipal fundings, and again, we do the rest privately. It costs us approximately, and this is going to be shocking, $2,400 a day to stay open, covering all expenses. And when you think that we're asking for $5,000, that's approximately 2 days out of 365, because we're open 365. Again, I just want to reinforce how important nonprofits are to this community, and thank you for your support. Can I answer any questions?
Thank you.
I do want to tell you that I'm also here for the Washington County Coalition for the Children. Would you like me to talk about that now, or do you want me to wait?
Can do it now.
Okay, great. I am a member of the Operations Committee for the Washington County Coalition for the Children, and I just think it's fascinating that you should know Sue Orban, who everybody knows because Sue works with everybody, is one of only 2 employees of the Washington County Coalition for the Children. She has a part-time position and is supported by a part-time administrator, and their income is $28,000 a year. They raise all of the money with a slight stipend, I believe, from South County Hospital and hopefully from our communities. Their mission is to serve all children with regardless of disabilities, ethnicity, education. They are to work with children. And what's also beautiful about it is it's a volunteer-run organization. Say you're interested and you're on a committee. Trust me, that's what happened to me. So if an organization wants to work with the Washington County Coalition, they have to partner with them. The Washington County Coalition does not work independently. They have a philosophy and a vision where they work in conjunction with other agencies and other people. So I do have their goals, but I think they're pretty general. They do have several programs, though, and one of them is somebody help me out here. The reading program. Well, they go to schools and they talk about bullying.
That's right.
I just know it's anti-bullying.
And they also did, I think, the Chalk It Up.
They did do the Chalk It Up. They talk about healthy relationships and anti-bullying. So this program we take into 11 elementary schools, and we donate a book to each second grade classroom, and the kids, the book is read out loud, and then everybody expresses their own feelings of emotion. And then we have a little contest, and these bookmarks are all reviewed by people, and we choose the most emotional or the most powerful bookmark from each school, and it's laminated, and then we go back and present people the book in the whole classroom and have a little award ceremony. So they're really working on a healthy community, starting with the adverse conditions that we experience as youth. So I really hope you support their program.
Thank you.
Can I answer any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, you could answer one quick question. They haven't done the Chalk It Up to Bullying in a while. Is there a particular reason why?
Yes, there is. First of all, it's very intense with numbers of volunteers, and Sue Orban really has done this on her own for years. And they expanded to 3 different communities, and I think there were some liability issues that may have surfaced in this community. So there was concern about that. So hopefully another organization will step in and hopefully take that over. Thank you.
The Southern Rhode Island, the Wakefield Village Association.
Oh, well, yeah, we missed Narrow. Oh, you're right. You're right, sorry.
WVA.
This is actually a blank piece of paper.
Not surprised.
My name is Ken Tetzner, the president of the Wakefield Village Association. We're asking for $5,000, the same amount we asked for every year. Last year, you were kind enough to give us an extra $3,000, in which we were able to buy a new boat for our River Fire event that happens every Thursday night. Part of our duty that we like to say is to market downtown, bring more people downtown, put South Kingstown on the map, and the Wakefield Village. I feel that we've done that, we've succeeded. Every event that we do throw, there is no charge. We ask for an in-kind donation, so everybody can come to the events. We don't try to put anybody out. We get a lot of help. I know, Rory, you helped me last year selling beer tickets, and yeah, it was fun. And Brian, you helped take collection to the door, and you also, on a personal note, gave a sponsorship as well. Joe, you're always there. We need you. Abel, thanks again. You're new to the council, but I was lucky enough to stand next to you and have a conversation with you. So welcome and thank you. Basically, just like Rob said, it's only 10% of our operating budget for the year. We go out there, we're all volunteers, nobody's paid. We roll up our sleeves, we hit the pavement, we raise money through our events, and we also look for sponsorship as well. So I'd like to think that you see the asset of what we do, and I appreciate that. Yeah, if there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
You're the only outside agency that ever got money for a boat.
Yes. Yes, I want that to go on record.
How is the vote?
The boat floats.
Okay, that's good.
So that's a great thing.
Because the last one wasn't floating well, right?
The last one probably wouldn't be floating. Nope, that was going to end up in the bottom, so that was definitely a liability. But this one floats, so that's good. And we appreciate that. The other thing that we did do is we put a small motor on the back of this boat, which hopefully in the future we can grow on the River Fire. We're talking about trying to raise some money to get some more baskets so we can have more fire. So, yeah.
Ken, what is your most proudest, I guess they're all very important, the things that you do, but what event do you feel like came from nothing and is turned into something that you couldn't imagine, or imagined, I guess?
I would have to say the Oktoberfest. We probably bring about 4,000 people downtown, and everybody has a great time. People walk down from the communities. We have the trolley available. We're always hiring the trolley for most of our events to help people move around. But that, by far, I think, actually last year the governor even showed up, so that was different. She was pouring beer with her young son. So that was good. But yeah, I'd definitely say, definitely the most work, but when it's all said and done, we're tired, but we're very proud of the Oktoberfest and what it's done downtown. they all pay for themselves. I mean, the Halloween stroll, that's part of, we raise money, we give back to the kids. We probably had about 600 kids this year, which, that's a lot of candy. So we support the local dentist as well with that. So that's good. That keeps the economy going.
Ken, I'd just like to say that what you guys do with the Wakefield Village Association really brings people together in town, and it brings a lot of people into town too, and that by effect is great for local business as well. So, keep up the good work. Every year it seems that your events extend and more people come down, so I praise you for that, and I hope it keeps up, so keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Southern Rhode Island Volunteers, now it's really your turn.
Good evening. My name's Deb Tanner. I'm the Executive Director, and I'm also a resident of the Village of West Kingston, so don't forget that one. And I know, where is that? And we do drive in to Main Street for the activities down there, too. We have been in existence for 38 years, and we appreciate the support and continued support. We do have a small office inside the senior center. That's where we actually manage and run the Meals on Wheels program from. And as a matter of fact, I can give you up-to-the-minute stats. I delivered one of those routes today because one of our volunteers was injured. 2 of the driveways, I drive a Toyota Camry. I should have been in a 4-wheel truck trying to get down those driveways, but those elderly people have their meals because I wasn't going to be defeated. That's really important to bring those meals to those folks, not only to get them the nutritional meal they need, but also for a safety check. A number of the individuals getting those meals are alone, and the only person they see on a daily basis is that volunteer from Southern Rhode Island Volunteers who's bringing that meal. Today we happened to bring 2 meals because Meals on Wheels canceled on Monday. So the organization statewide that provides the food does make up for it when they've had to cancel for some reason. But that's not the only food we deliver. Every Friday from the Johnny Cake Center, our volunteers show up at 9:30 in the morning, and they deliver to about 15 homebound seniors who are getting food from the Johnny Cake Center, 3 or 4 bags. And the reason they're not going to the Johnny Cake Center is because they can't physically get there or pick up that food. It doesn't take away their need. They still need the food. So we have a wonderful partnership with the Johnny Cake to make sure that the people who aren't getting Meals on Wheels also get food from there. Because a few years ago, when Meals on Wheels had cuts in their program, we used to deliver to 80 people here in South Kingstown. We now only deliver meals to about 40. It's only half of the number of people who used to get Meals on Wheels. So somehow those other people need to get food. So they're getting it from the Johnny Cake Center, or we're driving them to grocery stores. I have one local lady that I take to Shores, and I want her to do my shopping. I drop her off at 8 a.m. At 8:20, she's out of that store with 5 bags, and I'm to work on time. She's amazing. So we deliver food from the grocery stores, too. We're taking people to the grocery stores. We're taking them to St. Peter's Food Pantry if that's where they go to get their food as well. But it's not just the food. Healthy aging also means access to health care. And the biggest thing we do, we provided 234 residents with rides to doctor's appointments. And especially for like veterans who have to go to the VA hospital, that's an all-day event. To go from South County up to the VA hospital, the volunteer is taking them up there. They have to wait for the medical appointment, then they have to wait for the pharmacy and stuff. And we do it that one person goes in the car, you pick the person up, you take them to the doctors, you take them to the pharmacy, you take them back home. I got a gal who's addicted to the frozen coffees from Dunkin' Donuts, so we go to the doctors, we go through the drive-thru, get the frozen coffees, take her home, stop at the pharmacy. In February, I do tend to do an awful lot of the volunteering myself as well, only because a lot of our volunteers are also snowbirds. So while they're down there enjoying the warm temperatures, there's still seniors up here in need. We also provide 16 individuals with like minor home care kind of stuff. But when I say minor home care, I mean like we're hanging up curtain rods and stuff. If it's something major, we refer them to the home wrap program at the Elks, which is absolutely amazing. And those folks are all volunteers as well. So none of us is looking to duplicate efforts, because as a taxpayer, I can't afford that. I agree with the manager, we can't afford that. But it was really nice to hear the conversation and all the different opinions, because it is challenging. We don't charge fees. Our seniors get our services for free. We don't get third-party payments like home health aid companies do. But we are helping seniors who don't have money, who can't afford taxi cabs and those kinds of things. And they want to live in their homes, and we want them to be in their homes and be taxpayers. And leveraging that $2,000 we receive helps us leverage like grants for $10,000, $15,000 that make the difference, because we have that town support. And trust me, they ask, the Rhode Island Foundation asks, which towns are helping you? They ask me if my board members are given 100%. They have to give 100% too. The guys that are giving the bigger grants make sure that everybody's engaged. So that is really important. That $2,000 may seem like it's not a lot, but what it allows us to do is massive. So I thank you and I appreciate it. I brought brochures too.
Joe, you sit on that council? What? All right, the Narrow River Preservation Association.
Good evening. Thank you very much for being here. I'm just glad I'm still here after 46 years of being on the board of Narrow River Preservation Association, NRPA, and I live in Kingston, and the 46 years, most of those I've been president of the organization, and I just want to start off with saying that the Narrow River Preservation Association, it is the state delegated watershed for the Narrow River, and our prime responsibility is to clean up the river and improve the water condition. And that's it. And what we've done in the beginning, and what I've tried to continue, is to have each of the towns help pay for the water testing that's done on the 14 sites. And that's it. And I couldn't think of a fairer thing to do than to share the cost with the towns. The data from these sites has been happening for 27 years, going on 28. And during that time, we have all the data, and we have seen improvement in some of the areas of the river. And Allison Cates, our coordinator, after I give my little spiel, will tell you about some of the other costs and the other things that we do about the water. So that's my hello, and you know that the Narrow River flows through North Kingstown, South Kingstown, and Narragansett. And I'll just say it again, it'd be great if the three towns would do what they have in the past, and that is share the cost of the water testing, which runs around 10 grand a year, with when you add in all of the extras that go on. So what I'm going to say is there's three topics pretty much cover the volunteer work of the board of directors. And the way I run the board is that each board member has a project or two. And it is these board members who make it happen. Let me start off with the land topic, with a note about the origin of NRPA. In 1970, the Boy Scouts of America, who had given a large parcel of land, were planning to sell the land to a developer for a housing complex. A group of citizens protested and NRPA was born. Eventually, there was a compromise settlement of only having 7 homes on the property called 7 Farms. During the years to come, every residential community was looked at by NRPA, and there were a few times when NRPA had an expense of one time that they had an expense of $60,000 in legal fees in order to get their point across. And from that time, every contractor that was going to do something had their plans reviewed by NRPA before they got started, because they knew they would be in trouble if they didn't do it correctly. And in one case, that led to the donation of 3 lots to the Narrow River Land Trust, which is a separate organization. So NRPA works with the CRMC in reviewing every building application for the building of a dock or a building. Another important development, the O'Neill Bike Path through Canachet Farms, has been studied by NRPA since conception. The second topic I wanted to bring up today is water. The main aspect of this topic is Riverwatch, of which Allison will inform you. This program is the core of NRPA, and it represents the philosophy of reaching out. Narrow River reaches out to the residents. There are 3,300 homes in the watershed, and many of those homes, well, some of those homes are on the river banks, and the rest are up the hills, which makes the water not as clear as it should, clean as it should be. NRPA reaches out to the residents to provide a service to them and to the 3 towns. Another program of the same ilk, reaching out, is Narrow River working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Last year, the first segment of the dredging and planting of eelgrass seedlings took place. Ms. Cates reached out and directed 225 volunteers to plant 35,000 seedlings in record time. It's just that the volunteers that run the program and the volunteers that are recruited to do things, it's just overwhelming what NRPA does. And I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but there were 225 volunteers in that program. The third topic is education. NRPA believes that the watershed is a living laboratory for not only international scientists due to its unique composition, it is a classroom for the younger generation. Therefore, NRPA offers several programs that deal with school programs. Just last night, NRPA awarded 3 awards to North Kingston and South Kingston students for their science fair projects. In a way, their families were present, and it was a way of reaching out also. NRPA is also in the classroom with 4th graders with a digital tracking program so they can monitor the osprey from South America to Narrow River. In conjunction with the class activity, NRPA this week is installing an osprey nest site that will house a digital camera for the students to track activity in their classroom. Also, $1,000 scholarships are given out to qualified students. And of course, our science sector includes What is in the River course at Middlebridge and Art on the River at the same location. It represents NRPA busing of youth from school or from an area which the children do not get to see and participate in places like the Narrow River. While the land, water, and education topics I mentioned show you the big picture of NRPA, at this time I will give the mic to Allison to dig a little deeper into the major program that we hope you will approve, and she will answer any questions thereafter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison. I live in Peacedale. On behalf of the Narrow River Preservation Association, we're requesting an appropriation of the same amount as last year, $1,950, be made to support NRPA's Riverwatch program. We were formed in 1970, and since 1992, we've been testing the water at 10 of the sites that are on your map, and 4 were added later. 14 times between May and October, our volunteer monitors measure water temperature, dissolved oxygen, and filter water for chlorophyll analysis by the URI Watershed Watch Laboratory, and they also collect samples for salinity measurement. And on 6 of those testing days, they also collect samples for additional chemical analysis at URI. The cost of volunteer training, water testing supplies, and everything that URI Watershed Watch provides us is $650 per site. This is about half of what anybody, us or you or anybody, would have to pay another laboratory to provide the same services. An NRPA coordinator provides all of the coordination, and volunteers do all of the testing. Narrow River Watershed is located in Narragansett, North Kingstown, and South Kingstown, and as you can see on the map, 3 of the testing sites are in North Kingstown, 6 are in Narragansett, and 5 are on the border between Narragansett and South Kingstown. Now, of course, the water flows into all the towns and isn't site-specific, even though we have consistent testing places. The data collected by Riverwatch, which has been for 27 years now, is used by researchers, regulators, and state and local decision makers. Just one example of that is that last summer, NRPA and Rhode Island DEM got a $10,000 grant from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We applied for it, and then we made it happen to research the source of contamination at 2 of our sites that were showing high bacteria levels. So using this really innovative and scientifically accurate technique called canine detection, we had specially trained dogs come to the watershed, start at those sites, and then follow the scent of they're trained to detect human sewage. So it would be a break in a septic line or a break in a sewer line. We had town employee Bill McCusker meet us out there. At some points he picked up some manhole covers so the dogs could sniff. And then when the results were finally released to us, our team and Rhode Island DEM met with John Schock to review the results. John's responsibility is to follow up with the homeowners, and we have not released those results to the public because we definitely don't want to embarrass anyone who unknowingly has some kind of a leak on their property. We are really proud to have provided South Kingstown with the data so that we have a source, we have an opportunity to correct this contamination, and we really value the town as partners. We're working with the town on the stormwater based management practices that John Schock is working with Fuss and O'Neill on. We really consider ourselves partners to all 3 of the towns, and we really appreciate your support. Your continued support is a great value to us, but really to the whole community. So, thank you. Any questions?
I think you're off the hook.
Thank you.
And then Neighbors Helping Neighbors.
And physical therapy starts on Friday, thank goodness. I'm Mary Gail Smith, and I'm a board member of Neighbors Helping Neighbors Rhode Island. I've been on the board now, this is my 6th year. And I want to thank town manager and the town council for allowing me an opportunity to talk about our life-changing work. Our mission is to keep South County families in their homes, and it's our way of preventing homelessness. And if anybody was looking at my face when one of my colleagues was talking about the problems that she's currently experiencing placing homeless families because of new regulations, you would have seen my reaction. I really didn't know about that level of detail. And I know that when Neighbors Helping Neighbors provides free home repairs to low-income South County residents, it does keep these people in their homes, and it's our way of attacking the crisis in homelessness. And last year we had 75 requests for help. We send a team out to evaluate the validity of each application. We don't want to be in a situation where someone wants to change their living room color scheme, you know, that kind of thing. And sometimes when people are in touch with us, they really don't understand that we're looking to help low-income people. And the kinds of people that we help are the elderly, single mothers, veterans, people who are unemployed whose benefits are running out, people living with disabilities. So there's a wide range of South County homeowners that we are able to keep in their homes with our services, which, as I mentioned, are totally free. We don't have any application fees. We don't provide low-interest loans to people. We pay for our building materials and permits, and our big expense is our liability insurance for our volunteers. Our work is done by volunteers, except for some roof projects that are deemed too dangerous for the volunteers. And then we negotiate a really good price with someone who's in the business. So we're making a difference, and the value that is received from a contribution is multiplied many times over because everything is free. We do not have paid staff. We don't have a building. And as I said, our biggest expense is our liability insurance and obviously our building materials. We are grateful for the $1,000 that we received from the town of South Kingstown last year. I would ask you to please consider a similar amount this year. While it's true that it will be matched by an anonymous donor, we're counting on having $2,000 total from this request. And because we had 75 people ask for help last year, and we were only able to do 35 projects. We're constrained by two things: the number of volunteers we have available and the amount of dollars that we have available. So we really need the full support. And the woman that we helped in South Kingstown, one of the ladies that we helped in South Kingstown last year, actually she's in Wakefield. I'm starting to get it. I live in Green Hill, by the way. And anyway, this woman had a problem with her bulkhead in her basement, and we were able to repair it and repair the stairs and some of the damage that had occurred as a result. And the materials cost us $6,200. So it was a tremendous value. Last year we helped 7 South Kingstown residents. And some of these projects were really small, ranging from like painting, which would be like in the $200 range. I just talked to you about the bulkhead. A roof costs about $7,000. One of the women who lives in Kingston had an issue with a hot water heater that burst, and she had a low kind of, not exactly a crawl space, but a basement for a short person. And we couldn't get in there to really do work underneath. And there was a mold issue that we remediated. So our work is critical, and every dollar that we get makes a big difference. And one of the projects that I worked on, and I'm not going to be working on anything until I get myself fixed. But one of the projects that I worked on 2 years ago, the woman said, "You didn't even know my name, and yet you helped me." And I've kept that in my heart ever since. It drives me forward. So that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions?
I got a quick question. So you don't have a building, so you don't operate out of space, or?
No, we do not rent office space. We work from our homes. We're all volunteers. We have an executive director, but she's not paid. She wanted to have that title to be on a par with her peers in terms of title, but she's not paid. Anything else? Okay, thank you. And I do have...
Thank you.
Do we have someone from the Boys and Girls Club of Newport?
Hello. Thank you for seeing me tonight, and thank you for your kind response or remarks earlier. My name is Joe Tomczyk. I work at the Boys and Girls Club. I'm the Assistant Executive Director there. Our mission with the Boys and Girls Club, if you don't know, is to inspire and enable youth, especially those who need us the most, to become responsible, productive, and caring citizens. And last year, we served about 2,200 children, predominantly from south of Warwick, and approximately 60% of those kids that we served are economically disadvantaged. We only charge $30 a year for membership, and then there's an additional cost for some activities, camps, programs that we offer, but fees are never going to be a deterrent, so if a kid can't afford to pay, they come to our programs regardless. So we rely heavily on grants and funding from outside sources to be able to support us. In 2018, the club was approached by Sue Orban, Jane Arsenault, residents, a very passionate group of residents in the Johnny Cake Center, to talk about the needs of youth from South Kingston who felt as if they don't fit in with some of the out-of-school options that were available to them. And they wanted the club to offer programs that were more welcoming, culturally inclusive, and less pejorative. The kids were feeling as if they just were getting in trouble a lot, and they really didn't understand why. So as a result, we were able to secure a grant from a private donor to fully fund 45 children to attend Camp Grosvenor in Saunderstown. We established a great relationship with the youth and the community and the parents, and they expressed an interest in us starting a pilot program at Curtis Corner Middle School so that the staff can continue the work that they had with the kids over the summer. We piloted the program over 10 weeks for 10 to 12-year-old kids. It was 2 days a week, and we had a consistent group of about 30 participants come every week. The majority of the kids that came felt as if the place, it was safe. They wanted to keep coming because they felt like the staff cared about them and that they really just enjoyed themselves and enjoyed being with their peers. So as a response, we had an overwhelming response from the parents, and we started looking at a way to create a more robust program and have a permanent presence in the community. We're in Saunderstown with Camp Grosvenor, so we're local, and we feel like this is a community that obviously has a need. So we're looking to expand our programming to serve 40 youth 3 days a week for 30 weeks over the school year. And then 2 days in the community, and 1 day we'll actually bus the kids from the school to the club in Newport so they can have a full experience of what the Boys and Girls Club is all about. And then we're also looking to engage the kids, continue to engage them over the summertime for 8 weeks. The reason why we're looking to expand our scope of services and have a greater impact is because research shows that kids who engage for at least 156 hours have the greatest gains. And we are looking to offer programming for 180 hours during the school year and 320 hours over the summer. So it's really a way for kids that don't feel connected to feel connected to something and to know that we are a consistent presence in their lives. And it's meeting the needs of the community, it's meeting the needs of the parents, and we hope you'll consider the application. Any questions?
What types of activities are the after-school program? What happens at the after-school program?
So we have 3 tenets, essentially academic success, character and leadership development programming, and healthy lifestyles. So we'll always run an activity with the kids that align with each of those 3 outcome areas. But we really focus on the relationships that we develop with the kids, because kids don't come for a program. Kids come for the relationships they have with the people who care about them. So it's the belonging, it's the usefulness that the kids feel when they're in the program, the influence they have over the program, the competence they feel when they leave the program. So if you feel like you're connected to something, you feel like you belong to it, the likelihood is you're going to have that great experience, you're going to want to come back. And that's sort of what we focus our efforts on. But the kind of programs, it could be, we do homework help or tutoring services. We'll do social competency programs, so things like Passport to Manhood or Smart Girls. And it's really conversations with kids to get them to think about where do you want to be in the future, what kind of things are happening in your life now, how do you deal with those things, and what are your challenges? What do you think we can do to help you? And then healthy lifestyles, it's, we do some cooking programs. We have a music studio over at the club in Newport, so kids come and they'll be able to write and record their own music. We have a gym and a climbing wall, and Camp Grosvenor is 95 acres out on the Narrows River. We have a partnership with the Narrows River Preservation, so we're very involved in the community. We've been doing things like this for a long time, 63 years.
Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to have you address the issue of sustainability, because the pilot was very successful by all accounts. But the idea of continuing for years busing kids to Newport does not seem viable. It does not seem like a good idea. We have a lot of the programs or programming that's a lot like the programming that was part of the pilot and that you've described tonight. It's the disconnect that you've also described that keeps the kids from the programs that we've got. So part of what my question is, how do we bridge that gap, and how do we make sure that what you're proposing to do is the beginning of something that's sustainable locally as opposed to a dead end because we can't get over the bridge every day for the next century?
Right. So we've been talking, our board has been very engaged and involved in the conversations about creating a presence, a more permanent presence in the community. We need to be in the community now to understand what that more permanent presence will be. We've been working with the Johnny Cake Center on a regular basis tonight. We actually looked at a church space and the neighborhood guild, and we've had conversations around what other opportunities might be here. If we can find the space to be able to offer programs on a much larger level, we will. And it's really just a matter of sort of understanding where we are, what funding might be available. We know that the community we're looking to serve doesn't necessarily have the resources to be able to keep the program afloat. And so if for us to be able to have a presence, we're going to have to look at outside sources. This is a small percentage of the amount of money it would cost for us to be able to have a fully robust program. And we understand that, and we're willing to sort of eat those costs until we can figure out something more permanent. So we'll happily work with the town or the committee or anyone to figure out what we need to do to make sure that we're present.
So I'm glad you asked that question, because I was sitting here thinking, over the bridge, and I guess I'm surprised that there is no real permanent presence for the Boys and Girls Club in South County. Being a product of the Pawtucket Boys and Girls Club, I think it influences kids in ways that are kind of unmeasurable. One of the things I do remember, sitting at a banquet, and people that I didn't even know were sitting at my table because they wanted to be there to help the kids. I think, if I remember correctly, it was 1984, only because I have Roger Clemens and Marty Barrett's autograph when they were with the Pawtucket Red Sox. So some of that stuff sticks with you for your entire life, and it is a place where kids can go and do things and be safe. Things from, I remember, pottery, basketball. I mean, I would love to see some sort of permanent presence on this side.
And we'd love it as well. Mentioning going over to the club in Newport and that drive, the reason why we're offering that is because we want to provide as many experiences and opportunities as possible for the kids. And we know that the opportunities that we have at the club just aren't available here right now. So for us to create a presence, we know it may take a long time, but while we're looking to be permanent, we know that Newport has that opportunity. We have the pool, we have outdoor space, we have the climbing wall, we have a whole lot of other things that kids here just don't have the opportunity to do. So it's sort of a temporary solution, but ultimately we're trying to find something more permanent.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
concrete couch.
I just have some.
Okay, well, sure.
All right. Hi. I would like to first thank the council and the town manager for recognizing me tonight. My name is Sarah LeClaire, and I am a resident of South Kingstown. I was born and raised here. And so last year I graduated from SKHS, and right now I'm at URI studying math and natural resource economics. And I'm here tonight to present the rock wall idea. So I've been working with the Concrete Couch for the last few years, and I've gotten to know them as an organization, and it's really been a life-changing experience where I've now decided to go into nonprofit work. And so the climbing wall that has been described over the last few years is going to be a bouldering wall, as you can see in the pictures, figures 1 and 2. So a bouldering wall, for those of you who don't climb very frequently, is a wall where you move horizontally from point A to point B rather than vertically. So usually the walls are, the ones in Rock Spot where I work are only 10 to 12 feet, and the highest are maybe a few feet higher than that. And so the proposed wall would only be 5 to 10 feet, an average of 7 feet for the climbing wall. So it's nothing that you need harnesses or ropes or much padding to do on the ground. And so, and even with the height involved, there are certain specifications that can be addressed with the safety concerns, such as the padding on the ground, which is mulch layers and sufficient depth of the loose fill materials, and a ceiling or roofing on top of the wall so that kids are less likely to go onto the top of the wall and then be added a few feet in the air. And so, along with these safety concerns, there's the added benefit of the wall. And so the wall, the effect of it is not going to be just a climbing structure on the park. It's going to involve the entire community to volunteer and to input their resources and time into actually building the wall. So one of Concrete Couch's main fundamental standpoints is that they want to get everyone in the community involved in the structures and the murals they build and the programs that they offer. And they operate out of here and Colorado. And so to build this wall, we would have students from SKHS and all the other local schools. We would have volunteers from around the town come and build the project. I personally would be going to SKHS to run courses every week throughout the remaining weeks of the semester to teach the kids actually how the design process of the wall works, how the building materials are structured, how the project implementation process actually goes. And so those kids would gain those necessary skills. And I've worked with SKHS to combine this work through the Pathways project, which are programs part of SKHS for kids who want to go into a certain field like woodwork or mechanics. And those kids would also be involved, in addition to the really high-performing honors students, into volunteering with this project. So it would bring all types of kids from the community into the wall. And so then, after we go through the project implementation process and the kids help design the finite aspects of the wall, which will just be kind of the shape and where the holds are placed on the wall, then it will actually be built over the summer at the CCMS playfields. And this location is really great for the climbing wall because there are so many people who come there from track games and baseball games and just people going through there with their dogs. And so having that extra artistic, beautiful ability to climb on a structure would bring more people into the park, and it would add kind of a beautification effect onto the actual park. Because the wall, we're trying to mimic the New England stone and kind of do like an S-shaped curve that you can kind of see in figures 3 and 4. And so those figures were actually designed by Coastal Engineering and Ocean State Drafting. And so we do have official engineers helping us and backing us up on the structure of this wall, which will be reinforced with steel bars. But the artistic aspect of it is like an S shape, and the different designs of routes that you can climb around. And so by funding this project, you're going to be allowing, here's a model representation of the wall with small people on it as well that you can see. And so it's to scale, so then this is a 5-foot person, and they're climbing the wall. And so by funding the project, you're going to be allowing students to get involved in this and people from the community to volunteer, and you'll promote the aspects of volunteering and giving back to the community in order to enjoy it later on. And additionally, the wall will stand for however long concrete lasts, which is a very significant amount of time, and Concrete Couch will also provide general liability insurance, products completed operations coverage, and product warranty. And so they are going to ensure for at least 50 years that the wall will stay intact and it will be operable, and any necessary fixes of the wall will be minor. And so I would just like to close by saying thank you for recognizing me and allowing me to present, and I hope you consider the project. Do you have any questions?
It's nice to see a young person like yourself up here. You've done a great job in presenting this.
Thank you. I've actually been working on it for the last 2 years, and so this project, along with other volunteering I've done in the past, has made me want to go into more nonprofit work and doing a lot more of this in my future.
I have a few quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Concrete Couch, the name, come from? What was the...
Oh, so they build a lot of concrete structures, and their name, I think, stems from one specific literal concrete couch that they made that they put in Colorado, and it has like murals and art designed by the local students on it, and so they just adopted that kind of to signify they're inviting the community in.
Right. The other question I had is, you said that you work at Rockspot?
Yes, yes.
So the concern we have sometimes is whether or not something that we're going to fund is going to compete with a local business.
Oh, yeah.
How do they feel about it?
So the Rockspot branch has 5 locations. I know a bit about it because I've been working there and climbing there for the last 5 or 6 years. And so the local location and the gym manager, Greg Loudon, are really encouraging of the project because indoor and outdoor climbing are almost fundamentally different things, and they attract lots of different people, but they also sponsor the same initiative to get outside and climb and engage physically and mentally with these projects. So the indoor climbing, while it offers a lot of exercise appeal and different literal gym aspects, it is a bit costly for the average person to go in on a day-to-day basis. So having something outside free for the community to use and everyone to climb on would actually encourage more people to get into the climbing community by allowing them to use it for free and to have it just seen throughout the community, which will then just foster a better climbing community in general and encourage people to go to Rockspot and other locations to climb.
And I think I heard you say that the program would offer general liability insurance?
Yeah.
And if they do, how long would that be for?
I believe it's for 50 years, and so under the safety and construction, I designated the different types of insurance that it would provide. And so they do have insurance backing up their organization, which will be building and constructing the wall, and they insure it for, I believe, at least 50 years after the construction. So, yeah. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And that brings us to the VFW post. I do want to say that I got a request to perhaps have public comment on this portion of the evening, so people who are here for this part can take off before we get through the whole public safety services. We will do that. I just want to get through this list first.
Is there a public part?
No. Sorry, that was unrelated to what you have to say, Joe.
It's okay. Hi, my name is Joe Patrick. I'm the commander of the Veteran of Foreign Wars, 916, located across the street at 155 High Street. I just want to say, you rock. I know about you. Our post was founded in 1922. We're entering our 97th year of service to this community. We've been in that building. I researched it today with Dale's. A couple of her folks driving them crazy because looking through those books, you know, the deeds and the trustee, leasee, and all, whatever, it's crazy. We got it back to 1907, and then that was after an hour. We're not a private organization, Bob. We're an organization that reaches out to many more than 124 members that we have. The bulk of my membership is above the age of 70, to be honest, Vietnam veterans. The reason why we're asking for money and we're not in the business of coming before this entity hat in hand, the last time we came before here was to ask for money to get a handicap ramp in the front, and you gave us $5,000. That's frankly why we asked for $5,000 again. We needed that ramp, and it's beautiful, and now we need to handicap the back end of the building to allow for wheelchairs, because the bulk of my membership are older. But also we are expanding, and we're real excited about it, and you're making me give away my thunder. We're going to be creating an entity called the Washington County Veteran Resource Center. We want to become the one-stop shop for anyone, any family member of a veteran, boots on the ground like myself, or Billy, who's not here today, filming us, hopefully he comes back soon, to a veteran who just served in the National Guard and just served in Pawtucket somewhere or something. We want everything, any information to be available to them, and we're going to open it up. So we have, it's happening sometime in April or May. We have the Vietnam Veterans Association is moving in with us, and the American Legion, Washington County Veterans Association, and a couple others. But we want to become a resource center versus a private club. That's our entity. That's our identity. We've been in that building. We have on our chimney, it says 1931, so I'm guessing that's when we were built. That's what I was trying to research. It's hard. But we want to be bigger than that. We need the $5,000. We're not going to come back next year. We're not looking for a handout every year. And we're pretty lucky, and we're very cognitive of the fact that we don't ask for taxes. We don't pay taxes from you guys. And so, but we need your help to make us, so we have to cut half the door out of the way to make it wider for wheelchairs. We have to make a bathroom wheelchair accessible and all this other stuff that we haven't had to do when we were built. Our building hasn't changed much in the timeline that we've been around. We want to be more accessible. We want to be a destination location for anyone and everyone who has a question about the VA. Because, you know, if you're from around here, going past the tower is a long way. So we want to become the spot where they come here first, and we give them answers, or at least give them a direction so they can go find their stuff. And so I'm very disappointed, without talking to me, that you just flatly said no. But no, that's cool. I'm good with that, because we can have that conversation. And I understand you have hard decisions to make. But we service way more than a couple of folks. A couple of years ago, I asked for John Paul's downstairs in the assessor's office. for the list of all the veterans, of people who claim veteran benefit from the town. It's almost 1,000. And we mailed them out. I licked 1,000 envelopes, actually me and Sven Soderberg. So I had that 500. But we reach a lot more than just a few. And so I can't promise you we won't come back for something else. But if we do, it'll be for something grand and all of that. But it's impactful. We want to be compelling and meaningful, and we just need a little help. And that's all I'm here to say. So I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared. I thought we were going to be around a table. That's why I wore my regular clothes. Do you guys have any questions about what we're doing over there? Because I wrote it a little bit, but I'm really, because this is my first time.
Or you're dressed fine. Look at us. And I would just say, just because the manager recommended one thing, we are.
No, I totally get it.
Taking everything under advisement here.
Totally fine.
And I don't know if I think we're all very aware of the great work for the veterans that you do, and so you're an important member of the community. He's got to look at this from the penny pinching perspective, and it's our job to make sure that we're getting some of the heart in there.
We are going to be more impactful there are so many things that we can do. We just need to open up our facility to allow for more folks who could use our facility is all. And the last thing I'll say is the last time I was here when Steve Alfred retired, I gave you guys a hard time about the flag. See how it's crooked on the top? I will bid my question or my bid for $4,900. I'll take $100 off if you guys would just fix that Rhode Island flagpole so it doesn't lean over like that. It's been like that for a year. If that nullifies my $5,000, but it's been a thing, man, for a while. Anybody else?
I had a quick question for
Yes,
you.
sir.
I remember going to the Elks when you had that event where Kasim Yarn came down, and they talked about wanting to be able to provide more services down in southern Rhode Island. I know that I think Westerly Hospital was looking at trying to put something together with them so that people wouldn't have to travel as far. But, that didn't go anywhere. But I guess the question I have is I recall, was it once a month they're coming down? Or?
Yeah, so Jack Ryan, cool name. He's a North Kingstown guy. He does VSO. VSO is Veteran Service Officer. Basically, he's a counselor / lawyer advocate for veterans into the VA system. So what we're set up for now, we just need to get out the word a little bit more. And mostly the folks who are coming and attending our VSO visits are the family members because veterans can't attend. It basically goes right in and he logs into, and if you are not logged in or even haven't ever dealt with the VA before, they can do it real time. And so that's what we've set up. We have a little office that we've just created just for
So I guess the question really what I was asking is I thought at that time they were going to be using the senior center potentially to meet with people. So are they meeting?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought
Are they
that
meeting
up.
at your location now?
Yes,
or?
sir. The problem with so the dichotomy or the problem that we've been facing is that we need to get younger. And so having folks your age or Caleb's age we need to get them younger, and going to the senior center seemed to be a barrier, but coming to the VFW is not. And so that's another thing. We've got to overcome it's hard for a veteran to come before anyone hat in hand most of the time because they already served. They feel like if it's not coming to them, they're not going to go ask for it. So we have to go out to them, and we have to make it easier for them or less up a mountain or up a hill. And so that's what we've done. And so we've modernized the school. We got a nice TV downstairs. It looks like a place you'd want to go and not your grandparents' basement kind of a thing. And that's what we're working on. And I apologize for talking too long because I know you all want to talk and get out of here. It's important. What we're doing is really good work, and we're not asking for a lot, and it really is needed. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Mr. President, if I may just address one thing that I want to make sure folks are aware of. I haven't spoken to any applicants. My recommendations tonight were based entirely on the information on the application.
And the other thing is we hadn't seen your recommendations until they popped up on the screen.
That's right. And I also thought it was important for the public and for the applicants to know what I was thinking about it, because I didn't want to give you guys recommendations without the applicants and the public knowing.
Yeah, I think I may have inadvertently skipped over one or two folks. Is there somebody here from the Union Fire District who wants to speak? Or, if not, the Partnership for Prevention?
Good evening. My name is Melissa Mowry. I am the outreach coordinator for the South Kingstown Partnership for Prevention. Thank you, Rob, for your kind words about the partnership. We've had some meetings with Rob recently about becoming a 501c3, as he mentioned. So really what I'm here to address tonight is the $5,000 that we're asking for. That's really just for the things that our current grant funding does not cover. Eventually, when we are a 501c3, we'll be able to apply for different types of grants. But right now, we have a fairly sizable federal grant that kind of has a gap in what we can, in the services we can provide. So I should mention that for people who don't know, we do substance use prevention work in the schools and in the larger community. So one of the big gap areas that I'm talking about is our town's opioid response plan. So we have a committee, our code community overdose engagement committee, but unfortunately that grant does not cover certain specific things. For one, it does not allow us to purchase Narcan for the community. It does not allow for drug take-back events, and it doesn't allow for any kind of medication safety, storage, and disposal, like doTERRA bags, timer caps, lock bags. So that's something that we use a lot of this funding for, to do drug take-back events, especially at places like the senior center, at the police station, and we can give out all of these materials to people in the community. And then another big area that we're working on right now is our mindfulness initiatives. So we're obviously all seeing the kids are very stressed. They have a lot of anxiety. So one of the ways that we approach that is to teach them mindfulness skills. So we go into the classrooms and we teach not only the students but the teachers how to implement mindfulness and meditation in their classrooms, so they can, not turn towards substances when they're stressed and anxious. So that allows us to go into the classrooms and provide materials and to teach the teachers how to keep that going in their classrooms. And then the third kind of gap in our funding is our teen coalition. We have a really active teen coalition. They're called Ripple Rebels Inspiring Positive Lifestyles. We have about 50 students who come every other Wednesday at 7:30 in the morning to be part of this group. And what we're really able to do with this funding is provide them with ongoing education. They need education so that they can go into, for instance, the elementary schools and teach the kids about medication safety, so that they can go to conferences and present on behalf of South Kingstown, so they can come to some of our events in the community and present to members in the community about things like e-cigarette use, marijuana use, that kind of thing. So this funding from the town allows us to continue their education as well. So really those are the big areas. I don't think it's a huge ask, and as Rob said, we're kind of planning our exit strategy so that we probably won't be here in future years asking for more funding. So we're very grateful for the support that the town has provided up to this point, but we're starting to stand on our own 2 feet now, so this will probably be one of the last years that we're asking for funding. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a quick comment. I had been to some of the code meetings in the past, and I was the town council rep, or one of them. I think people don't realize how important the work that you guys do in our community is, especially when it comes to substance abuse and opioid addiction. Opioid addiction affects a lot of people in our city and town, I mean, in our towns down here. It doesn't always get talked about. I think last year what we did is you only asked for $4,000, and I know it wasn't a whole lot of giving you another $1,000, but we, as a council, decided to give you more money because it's really important that we show that we do support South Kingstown Partnership for Prevention for a number of reasons. One, you guys are very involved. You have great programs. You help a lot of the kids. There's a lot of kids that show up to the meetings on a monthly basis that are very involved. And I think that's where it starts, you know, where you've got children in the high school or in the middle school that are talking to their peers. You know, instead of feeling peer pressure to do certain things, there are people doing positive things in the schools to try to combat any type of drug use. And I think that's something that you guys should be rewarded for and congratulated on. And I know you still have a huge way to go, but without this organization in town, we'd be in a much worse situation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, real quickly, I'm just going to take public comment on this human service agency. Sure. Just come up to the podium, state your name for the record, and yeah.
Hello, all. I'm Dave McNabb, or more informational, Liz McNabb's husband. Most everybody knows Liz. Not very many people down here know me. I taught for 36 years up at Moses Brown, up in the city. And they had me out the first year I was there refereeing soccer. They didn't make that mistake again. The only sport I had any real contact with was climbing. And I was up there for 36 years, and for more than half of that, I think it was more than half, I ran a climbing wall down at the end of the giant kind of Quonset-hutted thing with the concrete ends. In that time, we had no real injuries. We had kids turn their ankles. We had kids scrape their knuckles. You know, we had a whole bunch of minor first aid. But then again, as we go down the stairs here, we could have a whole bunch of minor first aid. And that's not even climbing. The one really good thing I would say about climbing walls, it's not the only good thing, but if you'd ever seen a kid, I had a big climbing wall. Mine went up 40 feet. I believe that's not quite what's being proposed. We also did a lot of bouldering, low-level stuff. If you've ever seen the look on a kid's face that knew he couldn't do that, and then went up and did it, and got off, you know why it's worth having that kind of apparatus around. I don't want to drive out, Rock Spot. In fact, I'm kind of jealous of it. I wish I'd had that. But climbing's a good program for a lot of the kids who just don't fit in other places, too. Well, I will not take any more of your time. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Martinez, and I'm a South Kingstown resident.
I am Sandra Page. I have lived here all my life. I work at SK High in the kitchen. I am a cafeteria worker.
Hi, my name is Paul Whitford. I'm a grandmother of 4. And we're well aware that there is programs here in South County. But the problem is that due to socioeconomic status, cultural backgrounds, not everywhere we go is a place for us to be. So when we started to talk about the Boys and Girls Club, we started to think, hey, you know, the Boys Club offers a lot. It offers it offers that academic success. I'm not supposed to be saying this. You are. I'm sorry. I'm going to let Sandra get back up here because I took over the whole thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have 10 grandkids. I am raising 4 of them, and I am the voice for the children of Peacedale. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol, teenage pregnancy, young men going to jail, and I want to stop the cycle. I want to make a difference. And the Boys and Girls Club offers a lot of classes and activities that can help our young men and women in our community. And that is why it's so important to me. You know, I had children go through jail and being homeless, and, you know, even myself, and nowhere to go, nowhere to feel safe, nobody to talk to. And that's what the Boys and Girls Club does. And I want that for my grandchildren and the other youth that are in our community. You know, I want to help stop this cycle. And that's why the Boys and Girls Club is important to me.
Good evening again. The Boys and Girls Club is important to me as well. I am a mother of 7 children, born and raised in South County, varying in age from 16 to 5 months old. With that being said, for all the parents that are here, you know, you guys have to be aware that your children are all different. You know, you have apples, oranges, and every other fruit or vegetable that there is. With that being said, I have a child who has struggled and, you know, struggles with engaging in pro-social activities and faces a lot of dysregulation when presented with what we would consider to be, you know, normal, engaging with other people and talking. He struggles in that area. He did attend the recreation center. Upon his first day, he was terminated for the program for a year, which is very unfortunate due to no fault of their own. You know, I'm not trying to place any blame on the recreation center, as there's policies and procedures that are there, you know, that must be followed. However, that kind of left my child, you know, like I said, who has a disability, with kind of like nowhere to go. The Boys and Girls Club ended up being a very, you know, phenomenal. He was able to go there and socialize with other children. This is a child that scored the highest on the kneecap testing in the district for 3 consecutive years. High scores in the STAR testing, in reading and in math. So it's a pretty intelligent young boy. However, like I said, he struggles in certain areas, and one of them being able to engage in pro-social activities with people. The Boys and Girls Club has been fundamental to not only him, but to my family as a whole. And I do believe that there is a correlation that exists between children coming from a lower socioeconomic status who participate in activities such as a Boys and Girls Club than to children who do not. They're more likely to be successful later on in the future, and that's my overarching goal, is that he is able to become successful. It's not about me, but, I am a Salve Regina graduate. I do have my master's degree that I've earned from there, and I would love to see all of my children kind of pursue education and be successful within the community as well, as that is, one of the most important things to me, and it's quite frustrating that, he struggles, but nonetheless, I'm there for him, and I appreciate the Boys and Girls Club. And just briefly, in regards to sustainability with the Boys and Girls Club, I was at a meeting earlier today where a donor donated, an anonymous donor donated a generous several $1,000s to the Johnny Cake Center. So I'm hoping that is kind of like the seed funding to sustain something that's more long-term later on in the future, like having a building here in town where the children can be able to go and feel safe and things like that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. I got a bit of nerves, but I just wanted to just say this. The Boys and Girls Club that we have going on right now is not just a temporary thing. We have a group of grandparents and parents who have been working hard together for a little over a year and a half now. And everything we talked about was getting this Boys and Girls Club up and running. We got it running, and now all we need is funds and a space to call our own. And the kids absolutely love it, and they would hate to see it go anywhere. And as a grandparent and parents, we're not going to let it go. Not going to let it go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the human service outside agency conversation? All right, thank you. Oh, sorry.
I won't take a lot of time because I'll spend enough time with you guys next week. I did want to come up here. My name is Kate Massananti. I live in Kingston. I am on the school committee. I just wanted to come up here and say that I only speak for myself, but I hear you. I hear what you have to say when we ask for 2.5, and I hear what's being asked for. I heard it Monday. I watched the meeting last night from home, and I hear that it's a big ask that's not necessarily a responsible ask for the entire community. And I just wanted to make that clear, that the 2.5 is a stretch. It's not what you directed us to do. It's what we felt is that we could do as little damage to the school district as possible. But I also have been listening that it's not just about the schools. It's about the municipality as a whole, and we have to keep that all into consideration. I do have one question. I don't know if it can be answered or not tonight, but I do understand that separate from the property tax transfer was the potential of the bond issue in November. And now that we know that that's going to be pushed off, my question is, does that impact the amount of responsible property tax transfer? Okay, I just wanted to kind of make that clear and understand that, because going in on Tuesday will be a much different discussion after listening to your entire budget process for the municipality and not just the school. I think it's very helpful.
Well, what was your recommendation? I'm sorry.
That's an important point, and we've made this recommendation in writing to the council. The superintendent has received the recommendation that the finance director and I have advanced. Our recommendation is that the $500,000 that was to be set aside for debt service associated with the bond should remain set aside for debt service associated with the bond, because we anticipate a successful bond in the future. The 6 months to 12 months, frankly, just helps us a little bit because it smooths out the schedule. We were fairly aggressive in getting to the schedule that we had because of the timing. This helps a little bit, but frankly, it's not going to change too much, and just having the monies there to offset future increases in taxes is essential.
Okay. I just wanted that clarified, and like I said, just that looking at the budget as the entire municipality and not just the school budget is imperative. So, thank you.
So I do have to come back and repeat, though, what Trish has noted, which is ultimately that's our recommendation. It is the elected official's decision.
Thank you.
And I also think it's the responsible thing to do, I guess, to keep that money aside.
Wow. Today was really powerful. I really appreciate all the great work, and I'm kind of sad that they're walking out before they hear just how anchoring it was for me to hear the good work that they do. And there's so many worthwhile organizations. So my question's sort of simple, but maybe it's not. Once the money gets awarded to these agencies, how is that process of accountability followed going forward? So you shift over the money and then...
No, they actually have to invoice us. So come July 1st, we put purchase orders in the system for whatever is approved, and then they send us an invoice. So depending on how much they receive, we kind of have thresholds. If it's $5,000, it's a one lump sum payment. But if it's like $24,000, they get it in 2 installments. But they do invoice us. We don't just... there's no other backup. They just request the funds because it's been approved.
Mr. President, if I may. However, if the applicant comes back the next year, we do on the application require them to tell us what they've done. So there is some follow-up. There is not a full grant monitoring. We do not have a full grant office, and we do not sort of establish performance metrics and ensure that those are met.
So if you ask for less than $5,000, there's no accountability. They could say, I'm going to use it for X and then buy something else or use it for something else?
They're basing their request on their application, and we are trusting that that's what they're doing with the funds.
Okay. Just asking. Thanks.
Jonathan Daly LaBelle. I don't know if I had some general comment too. I don't know if I can wrap that in now where I can sit back down. But I do have a comment that relates to what we just heard. And so I'll respect that. So I don't think that the issues, when it's brought up the school budget and the ask from the school committee, schools do serve our children and our community. And I don't think that's mutually exclusive. So South Kingstown, there is some poverty, clearly. There's a lot of people who struggle, clearly. But when you look at the context of the world, especially, but of our country and of our state, South Kingstown can pay what it decides to pay. And I don't have any problem if South Kingstown decides it doesn't want to pay and they want to level fund everything, whatever. That's what people would decide. But it really is a choice. And so I just want to kind of counteract, that whatever you decide to give to the schools, I didn't do the math, but the amount of money in the social services is incredible. And what they do, you're right, you hear it, it is impactful. A lot of good conversation. I even have the sense that the town manager was impacted, and he's making professional recommendations. So, I have no, I don't think anybody had any quarrel with that whatsoever. But, maybe it's $50,000 is like what would be trimmed off of the ask, somewhere in that ballpark it looked like. South Kingstown can pay that and more if South Kingstown wants to. So I don't think it should get confused with the schools whatsoever. Thank you.
All right. I think we're about ready to move on to the rest of the agenda, I would just like to say that it's great to hear all that testimony in support of the amazing agencies that we have working in South Kingstown and serving so many of our people in the broader region. It's a little disquieting to hear that some of our own programs don't provide an atmosphere that make people feel safe. And I would say that, I hope, the Parks and the Rec Commission, spend some time sort of thinking about how we can change our programs so that they are inclusive.
So I've actually, on the Boys and Girls Club in particular, I've had this conversation with Terry Murphy a couple of times, most recently this week. And I think what we recognize is that there are cultural dynamics and cultural dimensions of public service provision that are just hard to get your hands around sometimes. And I think what we are hoping is that if the Boys and Girls Club, we can find a way to get them here, we can find a way to learn from them, and we can find a way to grow with them. We don't see this as competition. We don't see this as something that has to be swatted back. We see this as an opportunity to address an issue that the community has identified and an opportunity to change our mode of behavior so that we are better serving a component of the community that says it's not feeling it.
Thank you. All right. I'll let you lead the discussion from...
Chief, you're ready to be exciting because that's a tough show to follow.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about your slide, and then you can ask for details, just comment.
Good evening, everyone. Long night. This is my administrative secretary, Jackie Correa, and we're here for the police budget.
So the police department is made up of multiple functions. So we're just going to talk about them one at a time, and then the chief and Jackie can elaborate, similar to how John presented last night. So the police admin and dispatchers, the amount of tax support required for these two divisions is $9,485,000. The proposed expenditures, the overall increase is 8.6%. Of that, 6.1 is an increase in wages. The IBPO contract expires in June. We've built a 2.5% increase into that contract potential. They're seeing a 13.9 increase in benefits and an 18% increase in capital. That's related to the cruisers, I believe. The proposed revenues generated from the police department fees, fines, and detailed vehicle use is $332,800, which is just a slight increase of $7,000 over the current year. And part of their fees is also funding for a school resource officer from the school department of $48,000. Chief, anything you want to add to these two divisions?
I'd just like to say most of our increases involve contracts, benefits. We did backfill for a couple of police officers who were, is it on?
Is the light on?
If you get a red button.
So, I think, can you hear me? Yeah.
Oh.
You got you.
Speak into it, though.
Sorry. So a lot of our increase involves wages and benefits. And we did backfill for two officers who are on long-term disability, which decreased our manpower. And according to contract, we have a 5-man minimum most of the week, and then a 6-man minimum on weekends. And that takes away from, when officers are out, we have to fill a lot of overtime because we're working short most of the time, and we have been working short for a while. We lost 4 or 5 officers this year. They moved on to other departments. I'm not sure what the reasoning was for a lot of those moves, but it had a lot to do with salaries, I think. Some of them moved to different agencies. But nonetheless, during the summer we work short, and we have to fill those openings with overtime, officers working overtime. So that's the majority of our increase. Another part of the problem is, it's not a problem. Officers, we have 5 officers that are attending college. We have no way to know if it's going to be 5 or it's going to be 3 in the course of a year, but mandated by statute, we have to pay, as long as their degree involves law enforcement, we have to pay their tuition and expenses. So that budget sometimes, depending on who's going to school, right now we have 5 committed. That's a major increase, and we're bound by statute to pay that amount. So I'm not sure if anybody has any particular questions. Motor vehicles, Ford has retooled, and whenever a car company retools, you can add a little bit more money to the vehicle. So we have new vehicles that we have to replace 6 next year, and those will be there'll be an increase in price for those vehicles. We only have certain companies that can provide the police package, the Interceptor.
Chief, what happens with the vehicles afterwards? Do they get traded in or sold on the private market, or?
No, we have 33 vehicles, and normally what would happen with 4 or 5 that are going to be traded in the course of a year, we'll use for traffic details. So we'll take them out of service in patrol, but we still will put them on traffic vehicles. And those vehicles provide income for the police department because we charge an hourly rate for the vehicle plus the police officer. So they do produce income. If we trade that vehicle for $1,500 or $2,000, we can make that back in a couple of months by using the vehicle on the road as a detailed vehicle.
Chief, I have a question in regard to the tickets in front of the Matunic seawall. I understand that we want to balance the concerns of the residents in that area as well as, the needs of the business. Is it possible that we could kind of look into the possibility of allowing the beach parking lot as an availability for parking for the Ocean Mist?
Excuse me. Yes, we have talked about that in the past, and I think the major issue with that is the liability for people walking from the Ocean Mist back to the beach parking lot. You don't know who is using that parking lot if it's open to the public, and if someone, say 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 young ladies are walking back, and there's a gang of people drinking in the parking lot because there'd be no control of that. Or if someone falls on the way through the parking lot, it's not lit up, it's dark. So it's not so much the parking lot, it's the distance from the Ocean Mist or Joyce's or whichever pub they're leaving. So that's one of the problems that the town has to consider, the liability. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It's just, you wouldn't know until something happened. So
would it be accurate to say that the ticketing is not resulting in less people parking there?
No, I don't think the ticketing was bad this year in comparison because of the new wall. The vehicles seem to have a little more room to park there. So I don't think the tickets that were issued this summer compared to maybe the last few, I don't think were as frequent. I was down there, I think it was Sunday. think it was Sunday this week, I took a ride on my own, not on duty. I took a ride down there. And there were cars parked on both sides of the road from Deep Hole to Vanilla Bean. And I didn't see any tickets on them at all. So, I mean, if they had tagged those cars last Sunday, it would have been thousands of dollars worth of tickets. But, I mean, my officers will usually try to, if there's something going on, to not just go down there to ticket.
Right. I want to make that perfectly clear for the viewers at home. The policy of South Kingstown is not to ticket to generate revenue. We're not doing that. When we do ticketing and enforcement, it's because of safety concerns. It is not to generate revenue.
Right, and if an emergency vehicle can't pass through there, then we have no choice. We have to tag and tow. But a lot of times, they'll use a little courtesy.
On that note, I was just started to think about East Matunic Beach and that issue. Do you think we're going to be okay this summer? Is the state not listening to us in terms of maybe, because I think one of the suggestions was allowing people to get in and maybe pay on the way out?
Yeah, that's been a real thorn. Since I worked there at East Matunic, it's been a thorn. But they are going to increase the beach fees. Maybe that'll slow down a little traffic. But that area just cannot handle that many vehicles. I've said it before, you got 1,000 vehicles that want 500 parking places. So get there, first come, first served, but when the traffic backs up, you have a state facility on a state road, but you have South Kingstown Police down there doing 99% of the enforcement. And if we're at minimum manning, 5, 6 guys, there's 3 guys taken right there to manage East Matunic.
And that actually is the big story about this budget with regard to the police department. It's not what's in this budget, it's what's not in this budget. What's not in this budget is a traffic enforcement officer. We do not have a traffic division, and we are not building toward a traffic division. We are not headed toward a solution to the problems we've just described, or the traffic speeding on Middlebridge or 138. We do not have a traffic enforcement officer, and we are not budgeting for one because we can't afford it right now.
We'd love to have one. I mean, the complaints that come in every day, I could assign one officer just to take those complaints and go check that area and move those trailers around, enforce the speed. If we had someone, we could put them full-time doing just that.
But also at the same time, I think it's something that's very important to a lot of the citizens in our town. So I wonder how we could plan for the future or something similar.
We really just can't afford it right now. There's no way we could make that number work right now. I mean, even at 1% property tax transfer to the schools, even giving a little bump to the social or the outside agencies and the human service agencies, we really just, this is tight and there's just no room for this. We need to start figuring out how to get there.
But I guess the other question then would be, let's take East Matunic, because I guess the time that it really gets really crazy over there is the beginning of the season, because they're selling passes, right, which backs up the traffic. The people that live down Succotash can't get to their house or through their business. What can we do to put pressure on the state, I guess, to help, with this? Because I think there are some solutions. I just think they're not listening.
Well, yeah, Captain Ewing Chow has been working on that for the past 2 or 3 years, dealing with the state. But it's, I think what the problem is, like you said, it's there for 4 or 5 weeks, and then it slows down and the traffic starts moving again. Everyone gets their season pass, and the traffic's able to move a little more quickly. But there were private agencies collecting monies for the state. It used to be regular state workers would be there, so they had private agencies collecting money. And I don't know what their relationship is with the state, but that's a difficult situation because they work for it's a private agency working for the state of Rhode Island, and we can't go down there and say, move the cars along, It just makes it more difficult. We have dealt with the state. They've tried. They've come down, but the burden of that state beach and that state road falls on South Kingstown, which takes away from our 5 or 6 guys on the road during the summer.
And that's the point. Like
We're busiest in our town during the summer months, but yet we're going to put resources concentrated in one area because they're not trying to fix that problem there.
Exactly, concentrated in one area. Then we have Matunic, we have Green Hill, we have all of the town area, we have all of the north area from Middlebridge to Usquebaugh on 138. And so you're looking at a couple of guys to handle that. I should say officers, men and women. And if we, in the meantime, get an accident on Route 138, we're just, we're out. We're out of people. So I guess what I'm saying is it's manning. We're trying to do what we can with the people, with the resources we have, but in order to keep a level budget, and I could add 10 more guys easy and keep them all busy, 10 more officers.
And just for the council's information, we've priced out preliminarily a traffic enforcement officer at about $100,000. It's just a big ticket.
And so the situation in East Petunic is 6 weeks in May and June, but the other issues that person needs to address is continual year-round, right? The traffic issues on South Road and Rose Hill Road and Middlebridge Road.
Well, that's right. And if you had a dedicated traffic enforcement officer, he'd also be the person, or she'd also be the person reaching out to the state, engaging the state in the conversation in January about what's going to happen in June.
There's so many roads, even like Matunic Beach Road. I mean, that's a straightaway that people fly down.
We probably have more open roads than anyone in the state.
Yeah. Right.
And our guys do a good job. The officers do a good job with what they have to work with.
They're covering 5 people are covering 64 square miles.
And from Thursday through Sunday, we have a minimum manning of 6. Yeah, 5 the rest. I'm not saying there's only 5 or 6 guys on all the time, but
right.
We can, with vacation and anything else, someone out sick, we are down to minimum. And we're going in every direction, and it's a lot of area to cover.
Yeah, so
I'm out there late at night by myself, way out in West Kingston, and then get a call because the guy in town needs backup, or the officer in Matunic needs a backup.
Right.
It's 20 minutes to get there.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like this isn't an option for this year, but boy, it certainly should be a priority for next year. And I'm not even saying to burden the taxpayer. Maybe we need to make some adjustments internally to be able to afford that position because it's that important, I think.
It's certainly becoming apparent that we have a series of traffic issues that require a different approach than has worked in the past or that we're pursuing currently. We have to change something.
Yes, I know that, Rory, you asked about Middlebridge one time, and it's not like we had not been down there, but we did pay attention to that area for a month or two, and we put both trailers, one on each end, and we had officers posted there every day, and it slows the traffic down for a while. But then if there's a school break and then the kids come back from school, they have to be re-educated, and the people that drive that road. So we may be there for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, 8 or 16 hours a day, and then once we're out of there, it starts up again. I mean, we try to get there enough to educate them, but if we're there, we're not on Matunic Beach Road, or we're not on Green Hill Beach Road, or we're not on Route 1. So it's just constant. It just rotates. We're just going from one place to another. And these officers, they work hard, and they work a lot of shifts. A lot of that is because we have people out on sick leave who could have relieved some of these officers, but instead they're out there working double shifts because we're short. So it's a growing town, and we have to look at getting the number of officers on the road, and in particular divisions, we're going to have to look at increasing that. There's nothing else we can do with the population the way it is.
So there are three things that the people who worry about traffic calming and traffic management talk about. They talk about education, make sure people understand what the rules of the road are. You get to drivers and give them feedback on feedback signs. Just give people information so that they're educated about the rules, the consequences of breaking the rules, etc. Enforcement, having somebody out there or having a mechanism, a traffic camera, whatever, something that punishes bad behavior. And then finally, engineering. Somebody has to identify and work with engineers to solve geometry problems or alignment problems in roadways to fix those alignments so that they slow traffic and calm things down. We don't have that education piece in particular. We don't have anybody in the system who's dedicated to doing that. The enforcement we're strapped on, and the engineering, frankly, we're priced out of most of the engineering solutions.
And one thing I have to mention that I put into effect when I started as the interim chief was mandating every police officers to respond to every medical assist. That really wasn't being done before, and that has resulted in one man's life being saved at the Salt Pond Office Park, and that's responsible for several saves with the Narcan that we put in the cars the last couple of years. So there's another thing, if EMS Director Stanley can vouch for, sometimes it seems monotonous for these guys to respond to medical assist for someone that's 94 years old and maybe it doesn't feel well, but you have no way of knowing. We had officers respond to a medical a couple of days ago, and it was someone elderly, and it ended up being she had passed. So you don't know until you get there. So, but this work, I'm working these officers and having them respond to these medical assists, which is reassuring to the public. I mean, a lot of times they're the first one there, and if they walk in that door and they see that uniform, at least they know someone's there. Maybe the rescue's not there yet, but they're there, and it has a major effect on the people that are out there paying their taxes.
Yep.
So, but it's a strain on our people, on your people, your officers.
Chief, where are we in the certification or?
We're scheduled for a mock assessment on April 1st, April 3rd. And so if we do okay with that, then we expect to be accredited by July 1st. I can't guarantee it, but we're working hard in Sergeant Gardner and Captain Ewing Chow, and a lot of they're the nose to the grindstone on that. We want to get it done.
It's been a long haul.
It has been. Yeah. It's been a lot of policies.
A lot of work.
And then after that, we have to keep them all up to date. Case law but we're getting there.
Despite all the hardship, thank you for all the hard work.
I didn't want to paint such a gloomy picture. It's not that bad.
It's good. I mean, you keep asking.
Yeah. But it's just the town is growing, and we want to offer those services. We want people to get what they pay their taxes for, and so we try to be there for everything, but we're spread thin.
And the good news is he's become a recruitment magnet. People want to work here. We got officers who are applying for jobs as fast as we can get applications out.
Not because of me, but we do have a good group of people, men and women. And I just wanted to mention this past Thursday, we lost one of our retired officers. and he served our town for over 30 years. Ernie Petrarca, one of the best guys I worked with when I came on. He was an excellent police officer. So he was riding his bike, and unfortunately, he lost his life. And I wanted to compliment our police officers, our EMS, our fire department, and our dispatchers who worked diligently to try to bring him back. You don't always win those battles, but I just wanted to mention Ernie. He was a great guy. And I would imagine some people here know him. So thanks, Ernie.
All right, thank you.
We also, under the police public safety division, manage the animal control, the road, and the shelter division. The amount of tax supporting this division is $285,000. Proposed expenditures, we're seeing an overall increase of 4.2 related to wages and benefits, 4.2% and 4.7% increase. They generate revenues with fines, fees and fines, and receive Town of Narragansett support, $70,500 from Narragansett, and the rest is generated through fees and fines.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. Anne Marie is here from the shelter, who does an excellent job, works hard there, has for years. And as far as the road, our ACO officers, we have one full-time and two part-time. They're really, I think it's pretty much a flat line other than contract requirements.
Another division of public safety is the Harbor Patrol Division. Tax support is $4,000. Their overall budget is $40,000. They generate $36,000 in mooring fees. They have a decrease of 8.1%, mainly attributed to the new patrol boat, and we're seeing less maintenance expenses associated with repairs. And there's also a 13% decrease in commodities. I know the harbor master's here. I don't know if he wants to come up, introduce himself. Mike Stack. Yeah, Lance, then Craig. Yep, Lance, then Craig.
My name's Mike Stack. I'm the harbor master for the town. Thank you to the members of the council who were so gracious last year in helping to allocate the funds for the new patrol boat. As mentioned, we were able to decrease maintenance costs quite a bit because of that, and the boat has worked out very well. So thank you for that. And, you're more than welcome to come out anytime you like. We're happy to show you around.
There was another boat, right? A backup boat, or is there a backup boat?
So we have two boats.
Right.
We had three boats, and we went from 3 boats to 2 boats. And by speccing out a boat that was kind of able to bridge the divide between the smaller boat we had to do some of the smaller ponds and shallower areas, now a river, and the larger boat that acted as a backup for the boat that we keep on Point Judith Pond, we were able to consolidate down to 2 boats. And that second boat is able to do all the areas that we need to get into that have shallow draft constraints and bridge clearances and things like that, and also act as a backup to the primary boat that's kept on Point Judith Pond.
What are your, I know your busiest time is summer, right? But you're out there.
Sure. So in the from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we hire seasonal assistant harbor masters, and they work 40 hours a week to augment my schedule. And they're out there patrolling. We have a full training program. Generally, we've had great success with students from the Marine Affairs program at URI and also Mass Maritime Academy since for years now. That's been going on, I think, since 2001. My predecessor put that into place. And that's worked out very well. So they generally have an interest in going into that type of career and profession. So we're able to bring them in, train them, and then spool them up, and they're really a great asset for just that, few months where, as we've discussed with the beach and things like that, where it gets really busy down here.
Thank you. Congratulations on the negative number there.
That's what we strive for. Thank you.
Yeah, see, we knew what we were doing.
Thanks, Mike.
So the next division we have up is fire alarm and communications. Likes the hot seat.
Thank you.
Jackie, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
So the amount of tax support associated with the fire alarm and communications division is $293,000. They're seeing an overall increase of 8.1%. 7.1% is in wages, and that is due to contractual obligations and reclassification of the superintendent, 7.1% in benefits, and 15% in services. They do receive some minor inspection fees. We've budgeted about $2,000.
How you guys doing?
Good,
I'm always thrilled to sit in front of you and speak.
I'm surprised you didn't want to come up sooner,
I would have, but I thought the chief would be here. Do you guys have any questions?
How's the rollout of the new radio alarm system, I guess?
We're at 99% done. This is the last building to be done. We're having some schedule conflicts with doing this building because it's kind of a older building. And with the traffic in here, it's going to be a little monotonous. All the buildings are done. We're also off of all the lease lines we used to be on for the burglar alarm monitoring. They now go through the radio box. And that's about, this is the last one. We have 10 private buildings that were put on, and I have 5 proposed that will be going on in the next 15 to 20 days.
How's the overall reception in the community to doing this?
I have heard no pushback.
Good.
We actually have a waiting list for some local alarms for people that are looking forward to going to it.
Any other questions?
How are you doing with staffing?
For what I have, we do a lot. It's just myself, one other full-time and a part-time guy. And we're busy.
Copper lines aren't breaking as much anymore, or are they?
Every day we're out there doing something with them. Every time a pole gets hit, we have to do a transfer. I cannot wait for that technology to be gone.
And one just last quick question. I think I saw something, I'm not sure why. Some issues going on with radios in the town for police, is that?
Police, EMS, fire, and DPW. We're looking for the town-wide radio system. We just had interviews a week ago. We're scoring the consultants now, and we should have one picked very shortly to start the project.
So the state of that project is as Lance has just described, we need to identify a possible solution. We need a consultant to work with us to identify a possible solution. And then eventually we'll need to build out a new radio network, which means putting new repeaters and transmitters on towers. It may, we don't know because we haven't heard from the consultant yet, it may require new towers. We're talking about a substantial capital expenditure somewhere down the line. Venturing guesses, ballpark figure for a full build-out of a system somewhere between $1 million and $3 million. It's not going to be a small project, but it will, if it's designed correctly, for the first time give us full access inside buildings for all of the public safety personnel, as well as interoperability with DPS, the schools, and other administrative offices. That we are not there now is disturbing. We have police officers who have gone into buildings and lost radio contact with the guys outside the building, let alone the guys at dispatch. It is not a safe situation. We need to remedy it.
The Union Fire District has stepped up, loaned the police a few portable radios for these bad spots. So if the officer is going to a known place that is bad radio reception, they can bring a fire radio with them and at least talk to dispatch on the fire band. And dispatch and all the firefighters are well aware of this is going on.
And one last thing to note about the project at this point is it's really the first time that the town and the two fire districts, and we hope to drag URI Public Safety into this group, are working together. We're talking about developing a governance document that is essentially an MOU on steroids. The idea is getting an agreement between the various organizations and a method for resolving conflicts about the management of the system, but ultimately with the town taking the lead on the management. Lance is stepping up and designing not just a system, but an institutional structure that will allow us to stop doing silly things like having 3 different purchases of the same type of equipment, one for Union, one for Kingston, one for South Kingstown. We're doing a lot of lifting here. This is a big project. It's a complicated set of technological problems, and there are institutional relationships that have to be worked out. If Lance looks tired, it's because he's working his tail off.
He doesn't look too tired. He's good.
I got some sleep.
Any other questions? No?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last but not least, EMS. Hope you have a good story to tell tonight.
I guess going last, I get left of the money that's left over.
I knew you'd had something smart to say. The EMS division is tax supported by $1.2 million. They're seeing an overall increase of 5.2%. 5.9 is in wages, 2.9 is in benefits, 4.3 is commodities, and 27% is capital outlay, which is related to safety equipment. They do generate revenues from rescue runs, and to offset the budget, we are increasing the amount of $590,000 to $600,000. Greg?
Craig, I heard staffing's getting better. Is that?
Yeah, we have currently have 3 vacancies. I'm filling one. I have a paramedic starting next week, and then starting a recruitment drive in April. And I gracious that we were able to raise the starting salary, and I think we're going to see a pretty good turnout. I think we're very competitive, and I think that's really going to help. I think retrospect to that is we'll be fully staffed, and my ambition is to reduce overtime, and we have seen a trend. So I've been trying pretty hard to make that trend and keep Trish happy. And reflective in my budget is I've gone out on a limb to reduce my overtime budget with a goal of going to that step forward, and also the per diem staff with the intention of, if I have a full staff, I should be able to reduce the overtime quite a bit. So that's my goal.
So I think we've got the overtime problem on the run. I think we've figured out the recruitment challenge that we previously had. The one thing that we still haven't quite got right, and Greg can talk about this at length, I know, is mutual aid and service runs into South Kingstown. We've got about 33 mutual aids last year out of South Kingstown and 171 into South Kingstown, which means we've got neighboring communities, and particularly Narragansett, coming to our assistance far more often than we're being called to anyone else's. And that suggests that we are undercovered. that we don't have the capacity that we need, and that we're calling on neighbors more often than perhaps we would like. Greg, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, in our structure is we have 2 transport units, one that is 24 hours and one that is 7A to 7P. And then we have a first response vehicle with a supervisor. Our call volume is going up about 16% a year. Our demand for service is increasing. Our population, as Dave alluded earlier in the week, the elderly population, that's where we're seeing a bulk of our demand. That is going up. We're seeing where through this past year, our calls per month for 4 months were above 350, which is historically has not been during the month. At 7 p.m., we're down to 1 truck. Our mutual aid, probably 40% of it is after hours, where we rely on Narragansett, Charlestown, North Kingstown, Exeter, Hope Valley. The perfect scenario I look at is our response times in the evening in the southern part of the town could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's concerning to me. There's really 2 components to this. One is the service aspect of us getting paramedics to the scene quickly. The other aspect of that is, from the financial standpoint, is that's lost revenue. In the evening, where our average bill is about $1,500. That's what we would charge. Now, what we recruit could be different. But if you look at from the standpoint of that, that's revenue that we're not obtaining because that second truck is not up. But my primary focus is the response times at night and us getting paramedics to the scene in a quick manner.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Before Craig lays out his grand scheme on that, I would also point out that I'm concerned about the institutional relationships. We can't continue forever to rely on neighboring mutual aid. My understanding, I'm not a big historian on EMS service in Rhode Island, but my understanding is that there was something of a revolt up in Providence years ago when Providence was relying on mutual aid from surrounding towns, and they eventually just said, enough is enough. We're not doing that anymore.
They stopped it, yeah. The numbers were just staggering as to.
We're not that egregious, but we are not. The number is definitely imbalanced at this point.
Yeah, and I would have to say our partners of Narragansett, Charlestown, we have a very good relationship. Because from my perspective is we also go to their town. They have the same issues, but it does seem we are the busiest region in the southern part of the county, so the majority of the people are coming into the town of South Kingstown to help us out.
My biggest concern is response time.
Yes.
And then I get worried about people that live in the southern part, the western part, how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
So what is the plan?
The plan is I'd like to make the second paramedic unit 24 hours, and to do that I will need 4 paramedic positions, and I can add to that. We currently have that truck is staffed already with people that work 12 hours. I would just need 4 paramedic positions to make that 24 hours. And just this past weekend we had a cardiac arrest over the weekend, and the response time was 18 minutes to the Green Hill area. Because the truck that responded, it was at 11 o'clock at night, came from the North Station. So that would cut that in half.
So is there a plan to maybe have a second location potentially that it runs out of?
I would like to have a second location in some part of town, but again, that would be a large capital expense, but I think we need to definitely move in that direction. The current location is at the Public Services Building. I really would like to have a facility towards Matunic, down Route 1, down that line. We just get busier and busier. We see the writing on the wall.
Right. So,
microphone's not on. Do we know what the numbers look like?
So
reducing that.
So each paramedic is $97,000 essentially. Right. We do have offsetting revenue. There is third-party payments, so that helps some in this case. But it's essentially the comment made earlier with regard to the traffic enforcement officer times 4, minus the revenue that we generate.
But if we're reducing the number of the lost revenue, if we're recouping the lost revenue, there's got to be some offset. It's not, we're not looking at 400,000 with nothing to offset that, correct?
Right, and there's also, when you're talking about the revenue, as Craig had mentioned, our billing might be $1,500, but we're not going to receive $1,500 because we know the healthcare providers, they don't, so the Blue Cross, they don't cover all of that. So there's some write-off, there's some uncollectibles, there's some, we don't bill our residents, so it's not $1,500. Probably is closer to $1,000 or $1,200, and depending on, Craig has the numbers, depending on the number of runs, we just multiply it by the 1,200, I would imagine, and that's what we would be offsetting our $400,000 costs in personnel with.
So
I think we figured it was a net of about 200,000.
Yeah, our year-to-date since July is about 130,000. That's just in the evening. The calls that occur in the evening. Together, right now, it's about 220 between the two.
If we take these numbers as an indication of what happens, we've got about a 50% recoup in the cost of the program, right? So, I don't know. I'm looking for a solution here.
Well, we're not even talking about where are you going to house them. That's the whole other issue. So that's another discussion that Craig has also been working on with Narragansett as well.
Trish, you said that we don't bill residents. Does that mean if there's a difference in the payment from their coverage, do we charge their medical?
Whatever the insurance covers pay.
Right.
Yeah, if there's a if there's a co-share or something, we don't charge our residents because they're paying in taxes.
No, I understand that. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, no, we don't charge our residents.
Yeah. If the bill is, we'll say $1,000, and their insurance covers $500, the other $500 would be written off.
If it's someone that lives, well, I guess, residency, I guess, is the key, right? So if someone is from North Kingstown, as an example, but we respond to them in South Kingstown, we try to recoup as much of that. Okay.
Correct. In the current, the station at the South Station, I have put money in the capital budget for renovation for that facility to make it 24 hours.
South Station's the same building?
The public service.
Right, okay.
Yeah. In the capital budget, I've planted some money.
And the issue is making it so they can stay overnight?
Yeah, sleep, bathroom facility, that type of. There's plenty of space there, and the bay is fine. The facility's there. It's just a matter of where they're going to sleep in there. Probably some minor construction work, and then the bathroom facilities. That's one of the things that keeps me up at night. And it's it happens quite often. It's not a rarity. It's a daily thing.
Well, thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
So we can just wrap up with insurance and debt service. So we're seeing an uptick in the property liability insurance. We're estimating an increase of 14%. The claims experience is up, and also the trust has had a change in the billing methodology related to claims. Used to be that they would bill the deductible when the claims are closed. Now they're billing them as we enter them into the system. So every quarter, depending on how many claims we put into that system, it's $2,500 each claim. So that's what the uptick is in property liability as well as some of our claims experience. Unemployment has decreased. We're self-insured with unemployment, and I believe we're hiring less seasonal employees who are eligible to collect during the winter months when we lay them off. Workers' comp is up 6.7%. This is related to the constable's work in town details. We had an uptick in all the road work that was going on. And then municipal claims, we had 2 years, 2016 and 17. This is a 3-year analysis, so they take 16, 17, and 18 experience and roll that into your rates for 19 and 20. So we had an uptick in those 2 years, 2 anomalies. 2018, we only had claims of like $30,000. The 2 years previous, we were up to 250 to 300,000 each year. So here's where we can talk about the debt service fund for a little bit. The next slide is really where I think we need to focus on, and it's an analysis that I did with the capital budget, building the capital budget. So we're estimating $1.5 million, an increase of $500,000 in debt service. Related to that, the education debt is $1,036,000, which is a decrease over the current year, and the town's liability in the debt service is $949,000. Total outstanding debt is $8.9 million right now. Of that, 2.7 is the school debt and $6 million is the town debt. Much of that is related to the issue that we had in August of 2017 related to the recreation center. Offsetting revenues, we offset the debt service fund obligations with school housing aid for 2020. We will be receiving $496,000. We're also appropriating the remaining balance in the education fair share development fees of $70,000, $115,000 for recreation fees, fair share fees. Open Space is contributing $250,000 towards their liability, and South Road School is $9,000. Those numbers are really just the portion of the debt service associated with education and South Road School and Open Space. This is the analysis that I used in coming up with some funding over the next 6 years that's in the capital budget. And it's why it's important that the manager and I talked about what we were going to do with the funding for the debt service, and we felt that it was important to keep it how it was proposed in the CIP. And I think if you look down the list as you get towards fiscal year 2024, we're appropriating $2,550,000. I think at the end of 2004, you'll notice that the surplus balance, the position in the surplus balance, is down to $903,000 in the red. So there's actually a deficit come 2024 in the debt service fund if we continue to fund the debt service as it's outlined here. So what that means is if you start moving off money, if you start decreasing the amount that's planned, you're going to increase that deficit and that fund in the outer years. So that's why we think it's important to stick with the plan that's been already set. But again, it's not our decision. It's a policy decision. It's just a recommendation. That's it. That's all I have.
All right. Any questions? Debt service. Very good. All right. That takes us to the end of tonight's agenda. We did have public comment earlier, but happy to entertain a couple more comments.
I'm hoping you'll put this under other matters of interest and concern. Jonathan Daly LaBelle. I'm just here tonight because actually I know that there's a school committee town council meeting next week. I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be in Florida visiting my daughter and catching some spring training games. So I'll have to miss this fun next week, so I thought I'd join you tonight. I just want to put a little context. Obviously, a lot of conversation out in the community. And actually, I just want to say, too, I know you've been here 3 nights this week. So, I mean, God bless all of you, and thank you all for what you're doing. Different issue. I'll try not to go on too long, and you can shut me down if you need to. But many of the people who are focused on mismanagement in the schools are also people who support Trump and the GOP. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if Bush the second as well in the GOP, what has happened and how they've approached issues and budgeting for our country is really what's putting so much weight on the good people who are serving at the local level. So I think if the people who get wrapped up tight, and that's fine, everybody can worry about what they worry about, but the people who get wrapped up tight around here, if they were as wrapped up tight about what's happening when the people who they support, the Republicans, at the national level, that would be a wonderful thing. So I'm just going to remind about the housing. I know I brought that up. If we had more diverse housing for families and working class people on whatever level, there undoubtedly would be more children in South Kingstown. And again, it's not a knock on what the past has been. The town made correct decisions to get growth under control. Probably could have loosened up at some point in the past. But I haven't heard much, and I've been doing other things too, so if there's been conversation, either here or in other meetings, but I'm just going to bring it up all the time, because if you want more housing, and you want more working class people within families, and less of second homeowners and affluent people who are older, then you're going to have more children in South Kingstown. And so I just think that really has to be part of the conversation about how many schools do we close. Our per pupil, it's high, I get it. It is comparable with some of our neighboring communities, so it's not like off the Richter scale whatsoever. Cost of transportation, which I'm sure you know, is over $4 million. I guess it might be as much as $4.5 million now. And the state still hasn't factored that into the funding formula. So, pick on the school department for their decisions if you want and whatever, and it's all fair and whatever. But just keep some of the context in play, too. That's like $4 million. That could be, we've got to transport the kids, but the state doesn't seem to understand that. All right, so the thing, I don't know if this has been talked about in this last year or so, but I know in the past when Curtis Corner was talked about closing, that really, when you close that one school, that's the equivalent of closing 2 elementary schools. So just kind of bear in mind when that happens, that's the equivalent. That's how it had always been talked about in the past. I don't know if that's been talked about that way now. And it would have been nice if it could have been closed earlier, but we also have to keep the context that the only way it could be closed now is by doing an addition to Broad Rock. And that's going to cost a lot of money, and until just this past year, the state was not willing to pay for, or I guess they upped the rate, and you know about more of the inner workings of that than I do right now, for sure. Cost of private school, just did a little Google work. It's around $15,000. I don't think that includes transportation, and private schools don't really deal with all the issues that public schools do. So people get worried and they get wrapped up about how much school costs. Well, private schools, which is almost like a best case scenario for educating children in terms of efficiency and cost, they're still spending $15,000. So it's not, just keep that in scale. And last year, I think that the increase neared 3%. So the 2.5% is not totally out of whack from that perspective either. Again, thank you so much. I mean, the commitment, I get it. I serve some. I know the time. I really appreciate all of you, everything that you're doing, and I'm just sharing my thoughts. And I won't be thinking of you while I'm in Florida next week, though.
Thank you.
Hi, I just had a quick question. When Narragansett comes in to cover a run in South Kingstown, what happens to does South Kingstown resident get charged on that run?
Yes.
So they do. So if our EMS does it, they don't get charged, but if Narragansett does, they do.
We have a mutual agreement with them, so we respond to Narragansett, we charge the billing part and they write off the rest. So we have an equal exchange with Narragansett.
So the answer is that they're charged as if they were a South Kingstown resident. When Narragansett responds, our agreement says, and correct me, our agreement says that we bill your residents like our residents, and you bill our residents like your residents. So only the third party is paying.
Okay, so then they don't get a bill, is what you're saying. Okay, so there's really no difference as far as the end result to the taxpayer.
Except that Narragansett gets the payment from the third party.
Yeah, I understand, yes. Yes. Then the other comment that I had was, I remember when we went from, this is years ago, so I'm showing my age, but when we went from a volunteer ambulance corps to the town EMS, and I think we knew at the time that the cost was going to increase as time went on. It was just something that we knew was going to happen. And I think that, I don't think I can think of a service that's more important to a town, for a town to perform than EMS. It's something that if we're running, I think, 15, 20 minutes to Green Hill because, we don't have either a 24-hour truck available or place to do it, I think we need to rectify it because EMS is important. I mean, that's really what we're here for, is the safety of the people who live in our community. So that's just what I want to say.
All right, I think that's the final word. And it is 10:21. We'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for coming.
No kidding. Watch out when you're swimming at this town beach. Green Hill.